Hello, welcome and good evening to you all, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. You're back here for the UKSimRacing Community's GT3 League Season 12, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And what a time to be back for going racing. For today marks round 3 of 8 in the championship calendar, which continues to pose the question, who is the master and mistress of the GT3 class racing machine? And well, here we are today in Japan for the one and only infamous Suzuka International Racing Course, and what a circuit we have at our fingertips here. Originally opened as a test track for Honda, this circuit designed by John Hugenholtz in the 60s has gone on to become perhaps one of the cornerstones of motorsport around the world. With 4 absolutely unique sectors and 17 corners spread in amongst them, there's no one right way to approach Suzuka. For if you focus too much on top speed, you lose out in the corners. Meanwhile, if you focus too much on cornering capability, the long straights of this circuit will catch out as well and leave you vulnerable in the charge to particular corner sequences such as Spoon and 130R. Around here is a true driver's circuit, and that's what Honda wanted when it was enveloped the best part of what was 60 years ago. And we're here today to see who is the master of their machine and who is the master of the Suzuka Circuit, and able to put down the lap times that need him to take pole in qualifying and then go on to take victory in the race. But as we get set and ready to go racing today, we're welcoming you all to this broadcast live on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure, and of course those are on the official UKSimRacing media platforms. Firstly on YouTube, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, and that'll be at youtube.com, search for UKSR and UKSimRacing. And indeed, shout outs already to a good number of you, including in there where's Satinda Dinsa and also Kerry Hughes, who are both cheering on Tiki Simsport, and particularly Kerry Hughes, they're cheering on Shaminda Dinsa, who will come to very shortly. But we've also got to say hello to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch, twitch.tv/UKSimRacing. And that does include in particular there Zeros and also Matt OLC, and welcome to you guys there. Now in the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll bring you all your racing action tonight and indeed over the entirety of the season. And well, it's great to be back, ladies and gents, and we did have an absolutely brilliant official 24 hours on the iRacing Daytona service of course. Last weekend we had the official iRacing 24 hours of Daytona, and this weekend we've just seen the conclusion of the real live 24 hours of Daytona, and what an event it was. And this is only going to carry on the momentum. And well, let's give you a recap of the championship calendar so far and what we still got lying in wait for. As we can see, we started off interestingly at Daytona back on the 7th of January in our endurance round opener, and what a round to kick things off there with thrilling racing, particularly at the very front of the field in the elite class. But it would be James Armstrong who would hold on the end for Arnage Competition to take victory. Then in round number 2, last time out back on the 14th of January, goodness me, 2 weeks ago already, it's absolutely shown that the time does fly, and we are at the end of January already. Well, we were at the Hockenheimring 2 weeks ago in Germany in our first sprint race round of the season. We got to see some absolutely incredible battling up and down the field, and we also got to see some surprises, there was no doubt about that. And in the particular, when we do look back in the elite class, it was James Armstrong who made it 2 out of 2 in terms of wins, but also in what was the pro class, where the consistency of Ryan Davies was enough to put him on top of the championship stands going into the mid-season break. But we are back today for the Japanese race at Suzuka, of course. It's the 28th of January, and we'll, after today, we've still got plenty more rounds of racing to go, including round number 4 in a week's time on the 4th of February, and that'll be another sprint, albeit in the US state of Florida at the Sebring International Racing Course. And we look forward to seeing how our drivers get on there at the classic when it comes to GT3 class racing, with the bumps and rugged road surface. And then we'll be making our way to the US state of what we Georgia for the Brazelton Town Circuit, and well, it is going to be Road Atlanta, the ultimate roller coaster ride of road racing in the US of A, and that'll be for an endurance race round on the 11th of February. And of course, many of you will remember that this circuit has been the site of some absolutely incredible battles, and perhaps none more so than the infamous end of season rivalry between Cy Anthony and Sam Congreve. And I'm very pleased to say, ladies and gentlemen, we do have Cy Anthony back on the grid today, making his return, and more on that in due course. Now on the 18th of February, we'll be making our way back to Japan for the second and final time this season for the Okayama International Circuit, the T1 Ida Circuit as it used to be known, and that'll be for a sprint race there. We'll get to see the circuit in its all new splendour, having been recently revamped on the iRacing service. And then round number 7, our penultimate round, is an endurance race round, albeit it's going to be in Australia, and our drivers will be taking on the one and only Bathurst Mountain. Indeed, it will be at Mount Panorama on the 25th of February, and then we bring everything to a close, and the curtain comes down, and we crown our champions with round 8 of 8 at the Circuit of the Americas in the US state of Texas, and that'll be our sprint season finale on the 3rd of March. So plenty still to go here, and indeed, we've got a thriller ahead of us tonight, and let's talk a little bit about our circuit. And it is none other than, of course, the Grand Prix layout of the Suzuka International Racing Course, located near the city of Suzuka in the Mie Prefecture of the Kansai region of the Honshu Island of Japan. This circuit arguably is perhaps one of the most well-known in Japan, if not the most well-known. For the fact that with its combination of courses, as you can see here from the circuit map provided by iRacing.com, and thank you to iRacing for their brilliant simulator and the track mats that come with it, but perhaps it's more noticeable for its figure of 8 layout, and it's one of only 2 circuits that's FIA Grade 1 with a figure of 8 layout, where you do have half the course running over the top of the other half. The other circuit escapes me, but some of you anoraks there in the chats may be able to tell me what the other one is, and bonus points if you do get it right. But in terms of this circuit, for our drivers, it's 17 corners where it's all about knowing your machine and knowing how best to tackle each and every one. And as you can see, the first half a lap is focused around low to medium speed cornering and rapid fire direction change. And as our drivers charge away onto the start finish straight and down in towards turns 1 and 2, the infamous turn 1 corner, those 2 corners put together, they'll make their way through the long right hander where it narrows to a very tight apex at turn number 2 before they begin to power their way up through the S's at turns 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to turn number 7. But the key thing is they're gradually going up through a number of elevation changes, starting with an uphill rise through turns 3, 4, 5, and then as they make their way with the crest of 6, it's downhill, and naturally it'll lead to a amount of understeer coming into our drivers' cars, and they need to be ready for the sweeping left-hander at turn number 7 to roar their way into the second sector. And as they make their way charging through turn 7, it's into the Degners at turns 8 and 9, 2 very hard corners to master, particularly if your car's not set up to ride curbs, and we could see some drivers being launched into the gravel. But get it right, they'll go underneath the bridge and up towards the turn 11 hairpin, the Kobayashi hairpin, renamed in what was 2014, if my memory serves me correctly, in honour of Kamui Kobayashi, where it was the Japanese Grand Prix of that year, where we saw him make the most overtakes that's ever been seen in a Formula 1 Grand Prix by a single driver at the hairpin. And as our drivers make their way through turn number 11, and then power their way out the slides corner of the circuit all the way up to spoon curve at turn number 13, albeit by turn number 12. Spoon curve broken into 2 parts, the first part being an open left-hander and the sharper left-hander to conclude the corner. And as they make their way downhill onto the back straight, it's the roar and the charge over the bridge and into the legendary 130R corner, the corner that catches out many. And we're expecting it to catch out quite a few drivers today. And as they make their way for the fast left-hander, then go charging into the Casio Triangle chicane to complete lap turns 15, 16, 17. Where it's all about being late on the brakes, charging between the 2 apexes of 15 and 16, and then roaring out and through the fast right-hander to go onto the start-finish straight to complete the lap and do it all over again. If that doesn't sound entertaining, I don't know what is when it comes to racing in Japan, ladies and gentlemen. And let's give you a quick recap of the rules. Car setup-wise, drivers are not permitted to change their car during the season. And indeed, some drivers already have been voicing down the paddock they'd like to change their car, but they've been told no, you're locked in, and therefore they've got to do with what they've got. Car fuel load-wise, they have been restricted to 70% for all races. And qualifying-wise today, because it's a sprint race round, we'll see a lone qualifying format being used, where our drivers take to an isolated instance of the circuit, all in which they can set their lap times, and they have 4 laps plus their out lap, or 15 minutes, whichever expires first, in order to set their best possible time. Now coming on to the racing rules. In general, the races shall commence via a double-file rolling start, which is the tradition of the UKSimRacing GT3 League, of course. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements. However, given the fuel loads that our drivers are restricted to, we are expecting at least 1 pit stop for fuel today. Each driver has 1 fast repair available should they pick up any damage during the racing, and all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. And because this is a sprint race, we'll see the instant limit being set at 17 instant points, and when they do hit that magical number, it's going to be a drive-through penalty for our drivers. But that's enough about the rules and regulations. You're here for the racing, and so are we here in the commentary booth. And as we look back to the circuit side, here's your schedule for today. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. And as we can see, in just under 10 minutes time, we make it away to the qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration. All the drivers out there in isolated instance of the circuit, and therefore we're going to get some onboard laps and get to see who is able to put it on pole when they're not under pressure of having to deal with other drivers on the circuit with them. But then the pressure will be on when we go to the grid for the 60-minute sprint race, I should say, of what will be 8:15 this evening. All the drivers absolutely fighting tall and hard against one another. And I can tell you, when you do have the best part of 46 drivers currently in attendance here, as it's estimated, it is going to be a crowded Suzuka circuit, and one that we are going to love to see. But as all the drivers continue to get themselves set in terms of practicing right now, indeed this final warm-up practice, well, here's a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to introduce him anyway, and it is James Armstrong, the Englishman from Arnage Competition, who leads the Elite Championship after 2 rounds in the Audi R8 Evo 2, and really proving that the new machine, the new kid on the block, replacing the Audi R8 LMS from 2015, indeed this is the 2023 machine, is definitely a sight to behold with its roaring V10 engine, an engine that will be retired in the near future, given the fact that Audi's turning its attention more and more away from GT3 class racing, but still, whilst it's here, here. Let's savour it, ladies and gentlemen. And Armstrong there flashes his lights. I'm not sure if he knows he's on camera, but if so, it's absolutely great to see him enjoying himself out there. And well, he's your Elite Championship leader. But coming on to a driver who's new to the Elite Class stage, but he's very familiar to many of you who've been tuning in over the course of the season. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, for Symphony Esports, the Welshman Asai Anthony, and he is wielding the 127 Porsche 992 here as he makes his way through the King of Turn 10 and up towards 11. And hopefully that's not a sign of connectivity issues for Asai Anthony already, because if so, that's going to be off to a dismal start. He does rematerialise from the ether, but we welcome him back to the grid. And when I had the chance to catch up with him in the paddock in the build-up to today, he was saying to me that his goal was simply for this round to try and survive 130R, what is turn number 14, given the fact it really does cause cars which are mid-engine rear-wheel drive or rear-engine rear-wheel drive, such as the Porsche 992, to come very loose on rotation beyond the apex, and he's just aiming to survive that corner and has no expectations of finishing anywhere near the rest of the elite pack, for the simple reason it's the first time he's jumped in a GT3 since before season 11 of the GT3 league. And goodness me, you would have to go back 5 months in order to talk about the time that Asai Anthony is referring to. Indeed, it's almost been half a year since he's taken to the circuit in the GT3, and wish him all the best of luck on his return to the racing. As he makes his way on through there, we also do look to our pro class here, and we look to Alex Hill, the fastest driver out there at the moment, the TU Sport Kimmy. And well, Alex Hill, from what I'm gathering down the TU Sport garage, he's feeling very positive going into today, and Suzuka seems to be one of those circuits where he goes quite well and is feeling very strong with regards to his performances, albeit that's what I've been able to see or discern from the Tiki garage, which is absolutely packed with their drivers and their pit crews. But as he makes his way on around, he's not the championship leader in the pro class. Indeed, that accolade currently standing after 2 rounds with Ryan Davies. And here he is, another Tiki Sport driver from Tiki Sport Carmarte, and the number 85 driver here today in the Porsche 992. And he'll be looking forward to seeing if he can carry on his run of form, albeit right now P4 in the pro practice lap time list there, as you can see on the left hand side of your screen. Indeed, that time is outstanding tall. And Ryan Davies right now, I think we're looking just to get a good result on the board today and carry that momentum forward. Indeed, he's had the big results in the first 2 rounds, and now it's just about consolidating his lead on the championship and gradually extending it in amongst all the madness, of course, his rivals. But different circuits, different strokes for different folks, as we like to say, and therefore this could be a round where he's more focused on survival rather than going for the outright win and just getting the point in the bag. As he makes his way up towards Spoon Corner. Meanwhile, we do look from him down to what is our prime class here, and well, Marvin Cruz may be the fastest driver out there. Indeed, the primes, majority of which are currently in the pit lane, but we do look to Know Your Subbers, as we see the Ferrari 296 GT3 driver making his way in towards the Degners, the privateer, and great to see him out there, Lithuania, as he breaks his way into Degner 2. But as he comes on through the right hand, the driver who's currently leading the prime class is none other than Chris Constable. He is leading by 6 points over Anne Lever, Simon Oldfield and Rob Zelby, albeit Chris Round only a little bit further back. Indeed, the prime class right now incredibly tight between all of the drivers, but I don't think we have Chris Constable here on the circuit today, unless my eyes do deceive me. But we do have Chris Round, the one driver who everyone's going to be keeping an eye on, for the simple reason that he charged to an absolutely emphatic win in Germany at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, and I wouldn't be surprised that the Leroy Jenkins driver here is going to continue to channel his Leroy Jenkins and go charging off with the result if he can. But of course, it's easier said than done as he makes his way on through turns 1 and 2. As he comes on through and in towards the SE goes. Let's talk a little bit about AM class as well. It's only fair we do so. And well, right now, our leaders are tied in the fact we have 2 leaders in the championship, and one of them is in the Ford GT. Jack Barker there in the 163 as he sits there with the headlights going off. And well, I think he might have been tuning into the Daytona 24 hours over the course of this weekend and been wondering when's the Ford Mustang GT3 going to arrive on the iRacing service. And for those who weren't in the know, there are rumours that a lot of photography was going on with the iRacing development team, taking photographs of both the Ford Mustang and also the Corvette C8R GT3, and hopefully we'll see those on the service in the near future. But Jack Barker still bringing out the old school Ford GT and feeling confident, but he's one of 2 drivers who's leading the way, and the other one is James Connie in the more modernised Ferrari 296, the 6-cylinder machine, making its way on through there for UKSimRacing Mansell. And right now the number 46 driver thinking that he's got a good chance today to do well, and indeed right now he's setting those timing tower lights alight as he makes his way on through turn number 7 and in towards Degner 1, in the fact that Connie is currently with 10 faster than anybody else out there, and second place driver at the moment in the AM class in this practice session is our newcomer on the field today. He had signed up prior to the start of the season, albeit it's the first time we see him on the grid, albeit he's at a bit of a distance there. Our cameraman can't get close enough, and that is Shaminder Deansa at a distance for TE Sport Tower. Let's see if we can get a bit closer, and there he is. You can see a side on of the BMW M4 GT3, and whilst his brother, what is So Tinder's not going to be on the grid today. He's going to be spotting for Shaminder, as I understand it. So the two brothers are working together, and we do welcome Shaminder Dinter to the grid for this season. It's good to see him back in the number 12. Indeed, a very strong driver in season 11. The rounds he was able to make, and we're expecting plenty more from the BMW M4 driver today. So that's a good number of our newcomers introduced, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't got any new drivers on the grid, but we do have a team change to talk about with regards to one of our drivers, and that's this man here as he makes his way through turn number 12, Reese Saunders in the number 91. Now, some of you may remember at round number 2, he changed from team year 1 to being a privateer. Well, he's now changed from being a privateer to Altitude Esports. Indeed, he signed up with Mark Fletcher's outfit, and it's absolutely great to see him out there in the number 91 Porsche 992, flying the Altitude Esports colours. And when I had the chance to catch up with Reese in the build-up to today, he was saying to me about the fact he's excited to be racing for a new team, and it's the first time he's raced for a different team in 3 years. That's how long he is with team at year 1. Had a great relationship with them, and he now looking to form a new relationship here with Altitude Esports. So he's excited, also a little bit nervous, of course, because of the fact he's representing the team today in what will be his first round of racing in the GT3 League since the team switch. But he's also excited for what could be 130R, and suspect it could be the scene of a number of Porsche 992 eventually losing the rear end, and he'll be hoping he doesn't lose the rear end of his own one, and it comes at the cost of his rivals instead as he makes his way onto another practice lap. But Reese make his way on through, and wish him all the best luck, of course, in representing Altitude Esports Day. And indeed, I'm sure all of you will join me in wishing all the drivers the best luck as they go racing. There can only be one winner in each class, of course, and we look forward to seeing how they all get on with only 2 minutes to go before we go to the qualifying session. And as we get ready to do so, well, we do say hello to even more of you in the respective chats. It's great to see so many of you engaged and tuned in. And of course, we talked about in the Twitch chat earlier, Zeros and Matt OLC, and Matt OLC in particular, talking about the intro music prior to us going to the pre-roll with regards to having some Daft Punk vibes there. And well, indeed, that's why we go for the old school synthwave music when we can. We also do see Zeros there saying he's doing good, and well, he's wishing us all the best with the broadcast, and we're doing fantastically here in the commentary booth, Zeros, I must say. And well, it's never quite a great weekend without the UKSimRacing GT3 League. I can tell you that in my personal experience. We also say hello there to John Eddowes in the Twitch chat, who are very kind with the compliment there. And thank you, John. I hope you're doing well. And also to GZen High, who says it's another Sunday, and we are back. Indeed, we are. And also Connor DM Craven there. Looking forward to sitting back and spectating for once, albeit Connor not on the grid today, unfortunately, due to personal circumstances. But we hope to see him on the grid again next week. And we do have quite a few drivers who are missing today. Some big names that stand out as well. The one perhaps is the biggest of all of them in the pro class. You may be wondering, where is Lee King McGee? He's not here. Unfortunately, he's got some technical issues which are preventing him from racing today. He's aiming to be back on the grid for round number 4, but that could be a huge shift of momentum in the pro class, given the fact that we have seen the AKM racing drive prove to be a very quick driver, particularly at Daytona and also at the Hockenheim ring, albeit having to start from the back of the grid due to a qualifying ban. And we'll see him back in round number 4. Fingers crossed there, because we want to see how he tries to make a resurgence later on in the season. Albeit there is one drop score in this season, but it's not going to be permitted in the final round of racing. Indeed, the final round at the Circuit of the Americas is undroppable, and that encourages our drivers to take part in every single round where they can and be there all the way to the season finale. Well, as we come back to the YouTube chat there, we also say hello to Average Joe Racing, who says Fiorano is the other figure of 8 track. And thank you, Average Joe Racing. You've absolutely nailed it. You've made me recall the fact it is Fiorano, so bonus points to you. And we also say hello there to Matt Edmondson on Medmo, who has Ford PTSD from Hockenheim ring. And indeed, in the fact that Matt Edmondson was being chased absolutely relentlessly by Jack Barker, and they're currently P4, P5 in the AM practice session. And we also say hello to Kieran Lowe, which is everybody the best of luck. And when it's time, ladies and gentlemen, the checker flag is out on this final practice warm-up session. We're going to qualifying, but who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. So as all of our drivers now make their way into the respective lone qualifying sessions, it's going to be a quiet circuit by the one car we get to focus on. But with that, of course, it means that our drivers right now be able to demonstrate the absolute intricacies of being able to deliver the best possible lap here at the Suzuka Circuit. And as Matt Edmondson makes his way out the pit lane here for UKSimRacing Stuart, you may think 15 minutes is a long time, and indeed some of our shorter circuits so far, such as the Hockenheim ring, it definitely has been a lot of time for our drivers. But Suzuka is a little bit different, because the fastest laps around here will be coming in the region of just under 2 minutes. We're looking at 1:59 potentially for the overall pole lap. 2 minutes on average for the rest of the classes, or 2-minute ones for the AMs from what we're reading on paper. But the thing about that, it does mean that once you've done your warm-up lap, which is in the region of about 3 minutes, given the fact you need to get out the pit lane and you want to just gradually get the car around there, albeit you can't dilly-dally in the fact that otherwise you'll be given a rap on the wrist by the automated shielding system on iRacing. So you do need to go around quite quickly, but not too quickly, as you want to get the tyre temperatures up and also those brake temperatures up. The point being around here, once you spend 3 minutes on that warm-up lap, you then have 2 minutes each of the following laps, and you do the maths together, that is going to be 11 to 12 minutes of qualifying effectively if you do all your laps back to back. So if you do end up having to abort a lap and having to reset to the pits, the amount of time you lose, indeed the lap you lose on top of that, can be very punishing, and that's going to lead to this qualifying session taking perhaps a slightly different tone from our sprint qualifying sessions over the course of the season, just because our drivers will need to make the most of the 15 minutes here as they make the way on through. Well, now we have the big question, of course, is what do you need to do here at Suzuka in order to put the car on pole? Well, as we mentioned earlier, because this is effectively a test circuit in terms of the fact Honda have used this throughout the decades in order to hone in their machines from, of course, the likes of the first generation Honda NSX through to the latest generation, the FL5 Honda Civic Type R. This is one of those circuits whereby it really comes down to you as a driver and being able to understand and hone in the setup of your chosen machine. And we've been hearing the rumour down the paddock, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, of which we're seeing at Met Hisley here, racing around in the Iron Dames delivery machine, might be one of the favourites for this circuit, given its balance of characteristics, but there's no reason why we couldn't see a Porsche 992 in the hands of Ollie Pimley, for example, potentially take pole in the Pro class, given the fact that here it's all about the driver being confident in what they can do with the car and getting the setup right for them in order to feel confident in attacking each and every corner. Now, if you do have to go for a preference at this circuit, a little bit more focus on cornering over straight line speed will do you well, given the fact the run down towards 130R coming out of Spoon, so turn 13 all the way towards 14 is the major long straight, and then you do have to charge out the final corner into turns 1 and 2, which we're seeing Pimley do here. Those are the main straight line spots for your top end speed and your potential overtaking opportunities in the drag race. Other beyond that, however, most of your overtaking opportunities are going to come from running very close to your rivals and pressuring them into a mistake or trying to force a move into, say, the Kobayashi hairpin at turn at number 11. So therefore a little bit of focus on cornering will do well, but some straight line speed will just give you the breathing room you need in order to be able to stay clear of your rivals behind. But as we do see Pimley make his way up towards turn at number 7, and meanwhile we look to John Eddowes here in the Tiki Supersport BMW and Team Tiki running special liveries, a good number of them in reference to iconic figures from Japan such as Gundam, for example, and also Tiki-chan on the side of the wheel. Imagine if you were, and I think using the correct terminology here, ladies and gentlemen, I apologise if I get this wrong, but imagine turning Tiki Simsport into a waifu, as I believe it is coined, and that's on the side of the car there of John Eddowes. And as they make the way on down here, will waifus bring victories, or do they? That'll be what the team will be thinking right now as he makes his way through 12 and up towards 13, and as he does so in that BMW M4, always a solid choice of a car. We've seen the fact it's a very stable car, but some refer to it as the most boring GT3 on the service. For a simple reason, all that stability means it doesn't get very dicey when you start to really push it hard, unless you push it right beyond the limit. But then again, sometimes stability is what works for some drivers. And as we look to Rob Armstrong here in the Mercedes GT3 AMG Evo, the car that has proven to be the frustration of many, but not Armstrong, as he just saw Mercedes on the grid here today, roaring down the back straight with 6.3 litres of V8 power. That's naturally aspirated at the German power plant there. And as he makes his way through 130R, he'll be going towards the end of his first flying lap. And well, we're going to be riding on board with Rob Armstrong for a flying lap of Suzuki here, ladies and gentlemen. But I think it's only fair that the Mercedes gets its heyday in the spotlight, and as he roars his way out the final corner, here we go. Charges his way down towards turn at number 1, bring the car over to the centre road, just let it creep over to the left hand side little by little, shortening the run down towards turn 1, going up to 6th gear, and then onto the brakes on the left hand side, braking about 50 meters of quarter apex to turn 1, trail braking all the way down to 2nd gear for turn number 2, gets a nice late apex, now powering his way out and up towards turn 3 here. It's all going to be about throttle control and dabbing the brakes in 3rd gear through 3, and the same for turn number 4 as he now brings the car out, brings it into the centre, then turning to turn 5, riding apex curve to rotate the car through and into turn 6 nice and tight, onto the brakes early, keep the car very tight, wait for it, build the throttle back up, and then to turn number 7 here as he goes and sweeping left-hander, stamps the throttle down as soon as he feels that the car's bitten into the corner, and now flat out all the way through and up up towards the Degners. Now to the left-hand side, breaking the 50-meter board, downshifting from 5th to 3rd, and going into Degner 2, breaking on the entry curve on the left-hand side, down to 2nd gear, letting the car power through. You notice the preload differential there, powering on through and settling the car down for him as he makes way for the Kinker 10 and onto the brakes here for turn number 11, breaking 150 meters corner apex. Very early to the apex then. Armstrong, I think, feels he's got a lot of rotation in this car, and he can abuse the curve as well to go with it. And as he goes flat out through turn number 12, making his way on through the long right-hander up towards turn number 13, and bring the car over to the right-hand side and on to the brakes. He gets ready to go here, braking at the escape road on the right side, approximately 100 meters from corner apex of 13A, and then to the second part of sprint of 13B, down to 2nd gear, and waiting to get the power downs to bump in the road, unsettle the rear of the car, and cause the rear to kick out with oversteer, but absolutely no trouble whatsoever for Armstrong as he makes his way up towards 130R, and as he does so flat out all the way, and the Mercedes right now going up to 6th gear, looking over to his right hand side as he does so here, downshifting to 5th, nice and smooth on the transition as he brings the car over to the left hand side, and now braking hard into 130R, all the way down to 2nd gear, down to 1st, he connects the dots between the apex, goes a little bit deep into the first part of Casio, that converts his line for the second, and Armstrong parks it up, and he needs to reset that, and it's not an improving lap, and will for Rob Armstrong, what was looking a very fast lap, in that small mistake we saw at Casio Triangle, cost him very dear, and not enabling him to improve currently from what is P7 in the Prime class, but thank you to Rob Armstrong for giving us the on-board there in Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo, as he makes his way back out, and knowing the time is now against him. But meanwhile, the driver who's leading the way time and time is none other than Jack Taylor, as he makes his way on through the S's, as he weaves his way between the corners and up towards turns at 5 and 6 he goes, and as he does so, well, it may be Taylor who is currently the fastest driver out there over in the elite class, but meanwhile 8 tenths off of his pole lap will be Nicholas Rice, who's currently P5 overall, and he'll be your pro pole sitter if things stay as they are in the Prime class. Rob Zell will be P10 overall, currently 1.2 seconds off of the overall pole time, and then in the AM class it's none other than this man, the wrong starter, John Davis, the driver in the McLaren MP4 12C, who you want to keep your eyes on over the course of this season. We reckon he might have been the driver who's received the most bad luck out of everybody in the AM class so far, and right now has not had the opportunity to really unleash the proverbial beast when it comes to the old British V8 bi-turbo machine, as he makes his way on between the apex, the Casio Triangle, and down into the final corner here, and as he does so, coming towards the timeline, what's it going to be from John Davis this time? As he cross line, he does not improve, but still his lap time, his starting lap time of what was a 2 minute 0.5, a very strong lap, and I think he'll be happy with that, knowing he does have the best part of 1.5 tenths over James Conley, but then Neil Swift and Jack Barker completing at the top 4 in the AM class. But as he makes his way on through, now going on to his 3rd flying lap, we do see there the question for Zeros, which is Joe not racing this week? And well, we will just double check our notes here with regards to the state of what is none other than, I do believe there, if you're saying about Joe, are you referring to Joel Dutton perhaps there, Zeros? Because if so, I don't think we do have Mr. Dutton on the grid today. As he makes his way on through right now, John Davis representing the wrong stuff here and representing the team absolutely proudly as he makes his way on through the first 2 Degners once again. And G's and High there in the Twitch chat also providing the story with regards to the Tiki livery, particularly the Tiki-chan livery, with regards to asking a designer in Japan to do the livery, and indeed a paid for livery there, and one that the team very proudly have. But as we come on through the field, we do look back to our prime driver here of Chris Round, currently in P16, as we do show you the overall top 35 in this qualifying session on the left hand side of your screen. You can see there the top 4 of elite drivers, with then all the way down P32, Daniel Shilcock, Alex Millward, meanwhile down in P37. I suspect that's not the last we're seeing of him in this qualifying session. There's going to be more from Millward. We're just waiting to see him put the lap down, but as all the drivers make the way on through, well, right now it does look as though time started to bite into a number of drivers here. James Armstrong yet to get a bad lap on the board as well, your current championship leader in the elite class, and that's going to be a surprise if he's not able to get a lap in this session, because he'll be starting all the way from the back of the field, and that's something you don't want to do here, because overtaking at Suzuka is possible, but it is extremely challenging at the best of times, particularly when you're running the dirty of another car through the S's, for example, the amount of heat that pumps into the tyres. And when we do have the ambient conditions currently, as you can see on the right hand side of your screen, of what is 90 degrees centigrade ambient temperature and track temperature 90 degrees centigrade as well, that track temperature is going to skyrocket when we do go racing, in the fact all the drivers will be out of the circuit then and laying down the heat, and well, that heat is only going to cause the tyres to gradually fall away as the racing does go on. But as he makes way through turn number 12 and on towards 13, well for Chris Round here, no such concerns about the weather right now, and indeed as he makes his way into a spoon curve, he'll be feeling as though it's just another lap here. We need to now let from corner to corner and apex to apex. And so far, not improving on this lap compared to his previous best of what is a 1:59.81. But he charges his way onto what is one of the club straights, and he's heading up towards 130R. We're going into the fast left-hander, and this is one of the corners where the Audis may struggle, particularly with tyre wear, and that tyre wear being exponentiated with the fact the rear end of the car will come loose, given the fact you'll notice on the exit curve there, we do have the green AstroTurf. That provides a lot less grip, and when the condition of the car is right now, carrying a lot of speed there, and Round missing his braking point. But meanwhile, one driver who hasn't missed at all as he parks up there, I think feeling as though the job's done. That was his full flying lap of the session. Geraldus Jatatas with a 58.152. Well, Jack Taylor is still 1.5 tenths off, and he has had to come into the pits given the fact he's done 3 laps. He won't get a full fin, so therefore for Taylor, his qualifying session is done and dusted. Rhys Saunders right now currently in P5. What can he do to close the delta as Alex Millward's out there? He's third place, and he's the next driver who could potentially dethrone Jatatas from the overall pole position, as he makes his way all the way out towards 130R. As we say hello there to Divide Rule in the Twitch chat. Hope you're doing well. And as we do see Millward making his way on through the left-hander in towards the braking zone, can he find a way for Effect Simulations to take down Jatatas and put himself on pole? Because right now it is looking to be a golden opportunity. Helder Gonzalez moves up to P2 down to 58.299. This is going to be close, but I don't think Millward's done enough as he makes his way on through. This will be his last lap. He won't get any more in, and for Millward in the end, it is not going to be enough. So Jatatas is looking to be taking this pole position, but meanwhile, what about Armstrong? Here comes the Arnage Competition driver, and no lap registered yet for Armstrong, and that is a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure if you're the number 47 driver. Still 3 minutes left on the clock, and Armstrong again aborting a lap. He's saving it all for the last lap. He's going to give it everything in one attempt. Now this is truly do or die, because if he makes a mistake on this lap, it's all going to come back to haunt him, and well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's only fair we jump on board and see whether James Armstrong can get the job done. So here he goes, he makes his way down towards turn number 1. As he does so, over to the left-hand side, looking for the escape road, see if he can get all the way down the gearbox as smoothly as possible, down to third gear, down to second as he attacks the apex of turn number 2, and now powering his way in towards turn number 3. And here it's going to be all about balancing the rear end of the Audis. He makes way over the apex curve there of turn 3, bouncing the car over it, and well, got the car set up to ride curves, no question about it, as he comes through 5 and into 6, and now going absolutely as late as he can as he turns on through the corner, holding third, getting a look at the direction change as he comes down 6 into 7. The car absolutely flying like water as he charges his way up towards Degner now, going towards Degner 1, and as he does so here, bringing it onto the brakes of the 54 down to 4th gear. Chris Round has just taken the prime pole position. It should point out Cameron Armstrong will run wide there. That'll be an invalidated lap, and James Armstrong is going to be starting all the way down the order in what will be effectively down in P43 as this qualifying session is almost complete. Simon Oldfield heading to the line now as he makes his way around here on his final lap, and as he does so, what can Oldfield do here? Can he find a way to improve and potentially dethrone Round from pole position in the prime class? No, he can't. He'll take P24 overall, P6 ahead of what is sight of Steve Hughes. Meanwhile, Chris Round heads around with still 1 lap left in his pocket, but as he does so, Alex Millward's out there. He's currently P4, and what I do believe Millward has just done a 5th lap in this qualifying session, but it won't be counted, and indeed he's pulled into the pits there, so it's looking as though it's going to be Jatatas who's on elite and overall pole position. Nicholas Rice is on pro pole position. Chris Round, you're seeing now on prime pole position, and then in the AM class, John Davies, because we're running out of time in this qualifying session, and well, as we do so, Cy Anthony still out there trying to get a lap on the board. What about, well, we are looking elsewhere at the moment. I think everybody is practically done and dusted with qualifying. There is Stein Arsani, who's going to take P38, P13 in Pro-Am, and that's going to be his weakest qualifying performance of the season thus far. Simon Andre Livingston as well parked up, albeit missing a rear wing down the Ferrari 296. I'm not quite sure what's happened to the car, but it's definitely missing one of its key parts. But as he waits there, meanwhile, Chris Round heads on through. He's already got the prime pole guaranteed. Can he find a way to get things wrapped up? He runs wide, and well, he doesn't need to improve things any further, to be fair. And I think Round just trying to push for it even faster and get himself further up the order, but when he's going to start P14, now if Rob Selby right behind him starting P15, and for Round, that will be the prime pole taken as the clock's 10 seconds away from ending qualifying. qualified. There's no overtime in effect, ladies and gentlemen. Drivers have got to get those laps done before the clock strikes 15 minutes, but that is going to be qualifying complete because the only other driver out there right now on a valid lap is this man, Ryan Davies, but he's not going to finish it. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to head for the grid for our one and only race today. So as our drivers line up on the grid, this is how they'll be starting round number 3 of the UKSimRacing GT3 League Season 12. It's Arnage Competition who takes overall an elite pole position for Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift Design Net, and joining him on the front row will be Tractix Racing's Helder Gonçalves. Meanwhile, Jack Taylor starts P3 for TE Simsport Tire ahead of Effect Simulation's Alex Millward. On round number 3, it's Reece Saunders for Altitude Esports and Daniel Shilcott for Tractix Racing who complete your top 6 of elite drivers. Behind them, on what will be the full throw of the grid, it will be P7 at your pro pole sitter Nicholas Rice for Destino Motorsports, who starts ahead of Ryan Davies for TE Simsport Car Marte. Alex Hill for TE Simsport Kimi and Josh Pratt for TE Simsport Cobra complete your top 10, with TE Simsport having a very strong qualifying session here across the board, with Mark Collicott started best rest P11 for DCW Racing and joined by Somsport's Khalid Ramadan. We then have on row number 7 Krista Halsey for Tractix Racing and Chris Round for Leroy Jenkins, who is your prime pole sitter. Congratulations to him. He's followed up by fellow prime driver Rob Selby for UKSimRacing Stuart and Met Hisley for Sloshy Motorsports. On row number 9, it's John Eddowes for TE Simsport Tire and DCW Racing's Tom Weston. And then we do have completing your top 20 Casper Tunstead for Peak Sim Racing and Old Dudes in Cars Blues Marvin Cruz. Darren Sharple starts P21 for Old Dudes in Cars Blue ahead of Jeff Griffiths for Built Visible Racing. And then Alan Lever for UKSimRacing Stuart and Team Vagisil Simon Oldfield complete your run to P24. And then on the 13th row of the grid, it's Casper Brutler for Old Dudes in Cars Black ahead of Steve Hughes for Red Mist Racing. We know your Sabas started ahead of Stefan Albanese, the DRS Esports driver starting P28. Then on row at number 15, it's your AM pole sitter of John Davis of the Wrong Stuff, joined on that row by James Conley, second place AM driver there for UKSimRacing Mansell. Then Simon Andre Livingstone starts P31 for Racelab Esports ahead of Neil Smith for UKSimRacing Mansell. With Jack Barker started P33, the privateer ahead of fellow privateer Matt Whitefoot. Matt Edmondson for UKSimRacing Stuart on the 18th row of the grid, joined by Rob Armstrong for UKSimRacing Mansell. We then do have Shaminder Dinsa on his debut for TE Simsport Tire, starting P37 ahead of Steinar Stanley for Racelab Esports. Ollie Pinley for Symphonite starts on the 20th row, as does Dave Robson for TE Simsport Kimi. It's then John Dower for TE Simsport Kimi and Cy Hartley for TE Simsport Car Marte on row 21. And of James Armstrong for Arnage Competition and Symphonite Esports Cy Anstey on row number 22. And then last but not least, it's Joel Newton for the Wrong Stuff and Daniel Pace for Old Dudes in Cars Black. The last 4 drivers not getting a lap on the board. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as we look down to close to the circuit side, it was a wonderful view from up on high, but the view down the circuit is going to be tense, it's going to be turns, and there's one driver right now on pole who will want to run away with it, and it will be Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift Designs, Harold Shatatas, and as they come on through the final quarter, it's time for Green Flag Racing at Suzuka. And it's lights out and away we go here for round 3 of the season. Jatasa leaves it late. One driver's pointing the wrong way in the middle of the field. That's Matt Edmondson, I think, with some significant wheel spin and perhaps contact. But the majority of the field get away, and as they charge their way into the opening quarters, Jatasa's nailing the start. Reece Saunders meanwhile immediately being attacked by Alex Millward around the outside of turns 1 and 2. And as they make their way on through right now, all the field still roaring their way up through the serpentine sequence of the S's here. Wonderful to see most of our drivers making it cleanly on through. Many are too wide there as we do see Rob Selby and Chris Round battling further on back, and also Met Hisley there fighting with Selby as they come through turn 4 and 5, and in fact looking close to down tap battle. These two not backing out of one another as Hisley still trying to stay in it to win it for Sloshy Motorsports here, getting the inside of turn number 7 as they come on through. You can see there Selby having to give the space, and in return Hisley having to be respectful as they make the way through the long left-hander, and in the end it will be Selby who just holds on with Chris Round being bought a bit of breathing room there when the pressure did seem to be on initially round from Selby, but in Hisley putting too much pressure on from behind. But as they come on down through Degner 2 right now, the field started to concertina together as they come on through the end of the second sector. Oh goodness me, cars off there, and that is going to be, I believe, what is the car? No, you Sabas coming in contact with, I can't quite discern who the other car was. I think it may have been not Steve Hughes, but as Neil Smith here finds himself being lunged by James Armstrong. Armstrong already up to P31. He gained 12th place in the opening half of this opening lap, and he's still got more to go as Armstrong has started from the back of the field. But as meanwhile we look to John Eddowes here as he looks up the inside versus now the Casper Tunstead. Tunstead being run out of real estate there as he goes through Spoon Curve. It's not 2 into 1 normally, and John Eddowes showing why you need that inside line nice and early. as they make the way charging on through and up towards 130R. Edo's right now one more place gain. In fact, getting the place back from Casperton's there should be pointed out. He lost the place at the start and now find it back as they make the way in towards 130R for the first time. The corner's going to catch out many, but as they come on through left hand and out to the brakes for Casio Triangle. Meanwhile, further behind them, I can tell you that one of the drivers who was involved in that altercation was the run out of Degner 2 was John Davis, your AM pole sitter. He's ended up falling all the way to the back of the field, so John Davis's race absolutely in arrears, and indeed that's only after one lap of racing. It's all gone very, very wrong. But meanwhile, as they all roll the way into lap number 2, we look to your leaders here, and here they are. Your top 10 is as follows. In the elite and overall, Harold Stratata's leads ahead of Helder Gonçalves, followed by Jack Taylor. Then it's Alex Millward P4 ahead of Reece Saunders P5, Daniel Chilcott P6. Then your pro leader, Nicholas Rice P7 for Destino Motorsports ahead of Ryan Davies, followed by Josh Brandt, Alex Hill completes your top 10, and Cleve Ramadan P11 best of rest. Meanwhile, your prime leader currently is Chris Round still, and well, leading in P14 overall, and James Conley is your AM leader. Speaking of whom, here he is as he makes his way on through the run, up through the S's here, turns 4, 5 and into 6 very shortly. He's got James Armstrong right behind, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking in his mirror and thinking out when he's going to let Armstrong go rather than try and keep him at bay. As you can see, they're racing offline going into turn number 7. That's going to cause them a lot of momentum, and Armstrong here will be thinking, does he pick the move into the Degners? Well, I don't think Conley's going to have an option here. Armstrong's going to look around the outside. This is very brave from Armstrong, and I think Conley's not quite sure what to do. And as they make the way into Degner 2, well, there's Armstrong. He's going to settle the deal for him. Going around the outside of James Armstrong right now, definitely showing why he's your championship leader in the elite class. And right now, I think he's just focusing on the job first and foremost. But as they make the way on through the Kobayashi hairpin, meanwhile, further on down the other side, Anthony trying to pick his way through the field little by little as the Simulator Esports driver started down in what was P44. Tries to make further progress here past John Doble, and as he stays close behind the AM driver TE Simsport, the battle for P34 rages on between the two of them as they make the way up towards Spoon Curve, albeit at the moment I think it's on a bit of a hiatus. I think they're the BMW just starting to pull away on the straights, and it's this latter half of the lap where we will see the BMW straight line speed really come into an element of its own. As they come on down out to Spoon Curve, and from them we do look back to your pro leader here of Nicholas Rice with Destino Motorsports as he breaks his way on through and absolutely being chased there by none other than Ryan Davies. They made the way off of the corner, and as they do so, powering their way now onwards towards what will be turning number 1, and we ride on board on the rear bump here of Rice's car as they head in towards the next braking zone, and we can see Davies getting close. He's thinking about it. Will he go in on the brakes? Bushman had the better brakes, but even Davies knows it's too early in the day to try and make moves like that. But meanwhile, another man says, well, actually, it's not too early, as Mark Collicott does the exact same in the rear of the pitch. You may have briefly saw him, and the DCW Racing driver takes the position of a Khalid Ramadan from P5 in the pro class, or what is P11, and now Ramadan's got to worry about Krista Halsoy, who's closing behind, and then Chris Round, your prime leader, who's coming to the back of this battle. But as they make the way on through the S's, meanwhile, we are starting to get some replays coming through with regards to the early stage of the racing, and in particular we have a look back at what happened to Matt Edmondson at the race start. Well, this was, they made the way on down here. We looked at the distant camera as we're in green flag racing, all the field staggering together, and well, in the end it looks as though there was contact there between one of the, I think that was one of the TE Simsport machines and the rear of Matt Edmondson's car, unless I'm mistaken, at a distance there. But I think the staggered start just catching out a couple of drivers, and the UKSimRacing Stuart driver being the one to come off the worst as a result of it, albeit bringing it back together. But then the question is, what happened at the Degners? And well, this was Steve Hughes for Rhythmus Racing battling side by side with Noyu Sabas as they made their way for the right hand of the two drivers just coming together. They're fighting over the space, and will both end up in the barrier, and a nightmare moment for them, no question about it. But then also, what exactly happened to John Davis on the open lap, your AM pole sitter? Here's a further replay, and this was in the run through 12 into 13, battling with Matthew Whitefoot there. Whitefoot on the outside, Davis on the inside. Oh, goodness me, and there was contact there. I believe that was James Armstrong, and Davis being turned around, and everyone having to part the season, doing very well to do so. And the British driver getting it back in the right direction, but he won't be pleased with that whatsoever as we return to your live racing pictures. Those were the three major incidents from the open lap, but we don't want to dilly-dally any longer on the pass. There's racing, there's plenty happening in the present as well. And as Mark Collicott here pushes on down through turn number 17, right now the DCW Racing driver still trying to chase after Alex Hill in the fight for P4 in the pro class here, but he's got to worry about the fact he's still got that presence of none other than what is Khalid Ramadan behind him, and Ramadan is not being left behind. As they make the way onto lap number 4, still plenty of distance here. And all drives right now, I think, still in the sprint mindset in terms of that they won't be thinking about that pit stop or the strategy until around lap number 5 or 6, and that's when they get to the 10th minute. But meanwhile, oh goodness me, and that is big news. That's Chris Round who's gone around there, no pun intended, as he brings the car back together at turn number 2, and the Leroy Jenkins driver, well, that's definitely not worked out for him, and that means that Rob Selby now is your Pro-Am leader. As you can see here, the Ferrari 296 from UKSimRacing is sure just pushing on in P14. Now I think there's a bit more to the story than just Chris Round being turned around there at turn number 2. We'll find out very shortly as to what exactly happened. But meanwhile, just behind Rob Selby, we do have John Eddowes now on the attack here as he makes his way on through. Turns 8 and 9 going through the Degners. We ride on quantity. Says what Tardra getting very close there. Absolutely storming off a Degner 1. Meanwhile, Hisley by comparison taking it very, very tenuously. And as Eddowes looks onto the inside there, well, I think he's having to defend just as much as he is attack versus with Hisley. He's got Casper Tunstead who's very eagerly behind him. And to put that in perspective, here we look back and that is Casper Tunstead who's following as they make the way on towards what is the smooth curve once again. And as they do so, well, that Porsche absolutely incredible under braking, but where it loses out on the straights, we can see a look at Tunstead on braking, closing up 2 temps just by simply being able to massage the brakes much more comfortably. And Eddowes right now really having to keep the car pointed frontwards and making sure that at no point does he get outbroken by the Porsche behind him. But as they make the way up towards 130R, getting ready for the fast left-hander. This is where as well the BMW stability will work in instead as he makes his way on free. And Tunstead having to back off there. Now he's going to lose more downforce. Eddowes runs a bit wide and here comes Tunstead going all in. Or does he? No, he backs out there, but I think the temptation is absolutely right there for Casper Tunstead to go all in. I think he's worried about the fact if he goes for it too soon, does it put them out of fighting distance from Hisley? And well, that's only something that he can work out as more places being made by James Armstrong. He's now to P23 off camera in the rear view picture. You can see him in fact as he's just found his way past Simon Oldfield into the Casio Triangle chicane. But meanwhile, Chris Round here on the attack after being sent the wrong way at the start of the lap and now going the right way back up through the field. He's battling side by side with Matthew Whitefoot. Whitefoot on the right, picture Round on the left, and into turn 1 they go, and Round in the end just simply staying on through. And I think Whitefoot there, respecting the fact his rival is going to be very eager to make places, and he'll get it on the cutback instead. And well, Whitefoot doing exactly that, and Round just carrying a bit too much speed, albeit they'll be side by side going uphill with the S's, but in the end Round having to tuck in there. 9-2 does not go into 1 through 4, and will try to take these little pokes and peaks as they make their way through turns 5 and 6, trying to get into Whitefoot's head. But the thing is right now the BMW driver just keeping his head down and saying, well, I'm just going to be here and I'm going to be as wide as humanly possible and get you to make the mistakes for me. But as the Briton and chasing his fellow countrymen, right now Whitefoot doing a good job at just defending position in what's the battle for P8 in the Pro-Am class. And as they make the way on through the 2 Degners here, Chris Round's going to have to get a bit more inventive. But as they make the way out of the corner and up towards the Kobashi hairpin, well, here comes Round once again at 1.5 tenths. They make the way for the King. He's going to go all in here. Whitefoot sees it coming, leaves the door open, but Round on such a tight run to the apex just hasn't got the rotation and the power in combination to get it done. And Whitefoot just able to blast away with a 6-cylinder BMW engine as they make the way through turn number 12. But meanwhile, whilst this is playing out, we've also got further battling up the field. We've had Reece Saunders drop a bit further down the order, dropping down to P8 after running wide at Spoon Curve. From what I understand, the Altitude Esports driver now, he's under pressure from what is Josh Pratt behind him. In front, Ryan Davies and Nicholas Rice, the leading pro drivers fighting for position. But also, I think thwarting Saunders from cutting his way back through and chasing after Daniel Shilcock. So it's a frustrating block and a half-place situation for Saunders here as he makes way into the 11th minute, going on to what will be another lap, going on to lap number 6 now as he charges across the timeline. Well, we do have a quick replay coming up as to what happened to Chris Round only moments ago, ladies and gentlemen, and well, here is the replay of what happened to, at the time, your Pro-Am leader. He made his way down into turns 1 and 2. Had a bit of space between him and other drivers, so I suspect this may be of his own volition. Rear of the car, letting go there as he made his way into turn 2. I think going deep and then trying to downshift quite aggressively to get the car to rotate in. And well, an easy mistake to make. They're just a bit too eager, it would seem, to try and attack turn 2. And in the end, the Audi R8 Evo 2 catching him out for it. But now bringing himself back up to speed, so no damage on the car. A little bit of bruised pride patch, and also some overheating of the tyres. I think Brown will be able to get the car back together sooner as we get back together to the live racing here. And Reece Saunders right now still under pressure from Pratt & Hill as they make their way up through the Degners. As they come roaring on through, we do say hello there to UKSR Chris Eddersford, the head of UKSimRacing, tuning in via Twitch chat. Good evening to you, Chris. Hope you're doing well. And we'll see you guys again. If you haven't said hello necessarily in the YouTube or Twitch chat, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi and let us know who you're cheering on today and who you're putting your bets on for the victory here at Suzuka. And well, meanwhile, as as we continue to look here at Saunders versus Pratt. Elsewhere, there's some battling going on as Chris Round now trying to find his way past Whitefoot again, and this into Evan, but this time on the outside, and Round learning from the mistakes of the previous lap, and he's going to go the long distance here, and well, goes very, very wide, and Whitefoot gets a very nice exit as a result, but Round carrying all the speed there, almost as if he was going on celestial orbit as they make the way through turn 12 and on towards 13, but it's worked out for Round, using the preload of the Audi, plus also some camber in the road, and as a result, he'll get it done, and Chris Round there, right now fighting back here, and that's why he's a championship contender in the prime class. As he makes his way through turn number 13, Whitefoot will be close as they make the way on down the back straight, but how close would he be to potentially go on the counter-attack? And I think the answer is he's not going to be close enough here, but then again, could Whitefoot perhaps be saving some fuel behind Round, knowing that if he can save the fuel, he may be able to jump a few places? Well, from that, we've had some drama at 130R, and I think we've had our first Porsche at 9 and 2 go around, as meanwhile, coming in very hot, that's Stefan Albanese there, drifting his way in to the Casio Triangle chicane, and the fact making a move on Casper Brotner. I think Brotner just braked, and Albanese missed his braking point. And the Italian driver in the end converting what was a missed braking point into an overtaking move at short notice. And as the DRS Esport drive defensive, a P25 overall, will Brotner, the pro behind him, will be trying to find a way back in the battle of the Porsches. But Stefan Albanese putting down his mark and making sure to hold onto the position. But as they come through, we've got plenty of battling occurring in the AM class here as well, ladies and gentlemen, as we do look back to P37, P36, and this is the fight for what is affecting P4 in the AM class. At the front of this group of 4 cars is the AM driver of Dave Robson, Cy Hartley just behind him for TC Sport Car Marte, and then we do have Steve Hughes, the prime, who is the wolf amongst the sheep here, and then John Davis who's trying to recover his way into this race right now, and well, it does look as though Robson doing very well in just holding position in the number 99, and as they roll the way between the apex, I wouldn't be surprised if G Zen High in the Twitch chat there, or Greg Zen High, the team principal at TC Sport Beyond the radio to Robson, just saying to keep up the good work and make sure to keep that throwing nice and wide because you're doing a solid job. Albeit with Hartley behind as well, there's also the inter-team rivalry between the TC Sport teams. And you imagine they'll all be looking to try and score the best possible points for TC Sport as a whole, but also their respective outfits within the wider TC Sport frame. And as they make the way in towards turns 10 and 11, on to race number 99, driver goes here and looking very in control of the position right now. As they make the way on through, going a bit deep there does Robson, and that's going to cost him a lot of speed as he makes one through. In fact, you can already see Hartley just able to pull alongside, and as they go side by side here for return at number 12, well, who is going to be the one to back out first? I get the feeling that Hartley is not going to back out this way. He's got a nose ahead already, and as they make the way into the braking zone, Hartley gets it done. What about Hughes here, who right now really compacted in amongst the AM drivers? He can't find his way in, and John Davis just waiting there behind, and well, frustration build, I think, for Davis 9. This is not the race he expected, but as they make the way down the back straight from them, we do look a bit further back up the field, and in fact, when we don't jump immediately on the field here with Steve Hughes getting very close there on the run down the back straight, but again, just not able to make a move count. And well, I think some drivers right now might be starting to think more about the bigger picture in terms of strategy, and we'll talk more about that very shortly. As Hughes breaks his way into Casio, no way, and John Davis there having to snap the car to the inside. I think worried that he may not hit the brakes in time, or the ABS wasn't going to trigger, and well, the Davis in the end, no worries there at all as they make the way onto lap number 8. And meanwhile, looking back to the front of the field, this is Jotata still leading since the start. The absolute motorsport ace-level design driver doing a fantastic job as he makes his way on through the corners and in towards what will be here turn number 9. And as he does so, roaring on through, well, the 56 driver here just keeping his head down and in towards turns 10 and 11 as he goes. He's got an 8/10 of a second gap over Helder Gonçalves, and Gonçalves really today for Track 6 Racing enjoying one of his strongest performances of the season so far. Good qualifying session right now, holding P2, and the Portuguese driver's got the company of the Britain, the Jack Taylor right behind, and it does look as though this top 4 continues just up the pace. I think they're all starting to work on their own respective strategies and thinking more and more here about who can undercut whom, and on top of that as well, who can essentially find some clear track once they come out of the pits in order to get the key lap times in order to be able to get ahead of their rivals, because of course the undercut of Suzuka, extremely powerful if done right, as is the overcut. This is one of those circuits we said previously where overtaking is a challenge and you lose a lot of time being behind another driver. You can lose on average lap the best part of half a second if not more just by being sat behind if you're off pace, versus when you're battling it can cost you up to 2 seconds sometimes, and well, just one lap of battling could be the difference between you leading once all the strategy is done and you being down in P4 if you're in this group of drivers. But as they make the way on to the next lap, Nobody's showing any signs of pitting yet. We normally see the first pit stops come around the 18 to 20 minute mark if anybody's trying to go for an aggressive undercut. And well, from our drivers up towards the front of the field, we do look back to what is your pro leader here of Nicholas Rice of Destino Motorsports, and the American driver right now keeping Ryan Davis at arm's length. 4 tenths is the gap between the two of them, and they do have Reece Saunders to break up the pro pack as they roar their way into turn 1. And the DCW racing driver here, Mark Collicott, continuing on his way in the pursuit of Hill and Pratt as they roll on through. But as they do so, I think they're going to have one thought in their mind, which is the fact as Matt Hisley tries to find his way past the prime leader of Rob Selby. The one driver is going to be very shortly looking on the pair of them is this man, Arnage Competition, James Armstrong, who having started down in P43, is already in P16. He is currently the best part of 17.5 seconds off the race leaders, and he is roaring through this field. Indeed, there's been a couple of contentious moments, such as what we did see earlier between himself and John Davis based on the replay as we understand it, but he won't be worrying about those right now. He'll look at those after the race. Instead, his team manager will be on the radio to him to simply say, just focus on what you can do here and go all for it. And as they make their way up through the two Degners, right now behind him, John Eddowes falling a little bit further back. I think Eddowes will focus on what he can do within the pro class race, currently P9 in class. And meanwhile, going back to AM drivers in particular are towards that spin at the start. Here's Matt Edmondson at P43, it was P9 in the AM class, currently last of the AM drivers out there, but putting in some solid laps. Indeed, his lap pace right now, in fact, faster than the majority of the AM field up the road. Indeed, the only drivers who are faster than him on AM pace inside the top 5 will be P2 and Neil Smith and James Connie, the class leader. So Edmondson is gaining time, but I think the question is how much that time can he close back, given the fact he is 20 seconds currently. In fact, let's revise the calculation, 27 seconds currently behind Jack Barker, and well, Barker has already taken his pit stop. And we've seen an early pit stop from Barker. Now, was that forced by an instant or not? We're not quite sure the story. But the Ford GT driver here chasing after what is Shiminder Dienza. And, well, Shiminder Dienza yet to take the pit stop. So Barker 9, he's got to deal with a driver. He's either got to find a way through or hope that when he gets close to Dienza, Dienza will step aside and into the pit. And that won't be because Dienza wants to oblige. It will be because his strategic card has been played. And Barker will be just hoping that the timing works out. But as they make the way on down through Spoon Curve, and meanwhile we look further up the order, and this is back inside the top 10, and this is Joshua Pratt chasing after Reece Saunders. They made their way into turn where you can see Pratt right now keep very close and looking for that potential move as we ride on board the nose bump there of the Esports driver, and as he follows the Altitude Esports Porsche Pro, it looks like Saunders may be just struggling a little bit here for the pace in what is this mid-stint of the opening part of the race. As they make their way on through the S, and you'll notice that Saunders really follows those apexes a lot more aggressively in terms of the car being spat out, whereas Pratt is able to rotate much more comfortably, and it would seem that perhaps Saunders right now may be dealing with a tyre temperature issue, or alternatively the car just not in the best zone for the amount of fuel it's got in it. Keep in mind, of course, the Porsche 992 a little bit unique in terms of the way the fuel's put in the car compared to the majority of its rivals on the grid, as we do see Pratt going a bit deep left on the dirty air going into Daytona 2. In the fact the Porsche fuel tank in the front, when it's on heavy fuel, it means you've got a very heavy front end combined with what is the aero balance on the rear end of the wing, as Pratt goes very late on the brakes there, misses braking point, gets it back together, and well, I think Pratt right now starting to stamp at the brake pedal and the throttle pedal a bit too aggressively, eager to get past Saunders, but I think in the process here just needing to wind it down slightly and recognise the strategy to come, and that could be where the big gains are making. The fact that Rice and Davies, who he's trying to chase after the win in the pro class, are only 2 seconds up the road, and they're not out of strategic reach yet. Coming back to our point with regards to the Porsche, in the fact as the race goes on, the fuel's burnt out, the aero balance of the car very quickly shifts from ways towards the front over to the rear of the car, and it means you're driving an entirely different car when it's on low fuel compared to when it's on high fuel, and that means that sometimes when you set it up for the races, you've got to set up very differently compared to its qualifying setup, whereas some of our other cars out in this grid will have very similar setups to their qualifying setups, potentially will be adjusted for the fuel loads. But as they make their way on through, we said we were going to talk a bit about strategy, and well, let's talk a bit more about it now in terms of the fact that, as we can see, looking at our circuit map, most of the field is still compact and close together, and when you come out in any of these battles, you are going to lose a huge amount of time. But for our drivers here as well, one of the big elements when you're this close is trying to fuel save off your rivals down the straight. Perhaps doing a bit of a short shift or just lift and coasting into the next braking zone, and those little short shifts and the lift and coasting can be worth a couple of seconds of time in the pits that you can gain, as me or John Davis, I think, will feel as though he can't afford that. As we are looking out of my pit box window, we've got Casper Townsend and Chris Brown making their way on down pit lane. So they're the first 2 drivers, I think, to have what will will be their main strategic pit stops here, and indeed, I think they're going to be quite extended stops. I think the pit stops we've seen previously have been due to damage picked up for drivers, and therefore they've had to opt to take those pit stops prematurely and therefore be forced onto a two-stop strategy. But as John Davis makes his way down here, looking for the move versus Robson. Robson on the right, Davis on the left as they head down towards turn one. The wrong stuff driver here going hard on the brakes, and as they do, Robson holding him there. Robson's not getting in, and Davis losing the rear of the car as he turns into turn number 2, and the McLaren coming back to haunt him, similarly to around much earlier in the race. But for Davis there, battling hard and fast on the inside, and I think in the end the McLaren just not having enough grip, and well, the frustration goes on for the 26 driver as he brings it back together, and well, coming on through now, we'll be a long way off with Shaminder Dinsa further up the road, also Jack Barker as well. So Davis knowing that his race has gone from good to bad to worse in only the space of 21 minutes, and there's still a long way of this journey to go here in Suzuka. But as we look to Shaminder Dinsa making his way on through turn number 7 and up towards 8, roaring on through right now, chasing after Jack Barker, albeit the two have swapped places quite recently. Well, the Teason driver knowing that there's still opportunities out there, and Barker of course having made one pit stop already, having to make another at some point in this race, we reckon. Well, from Dinsa we do a little bit further up in the AM class. Indeed, we do look to your second place AM driver here, currently running P31 of Neil Smith for UKSimRacing Mansell, as he comes on down and around through Spoon Curve. Right now, very in a solid race. However, he will have the threat of John Doble a little bit further back, and Doble right now 6 seconds behind. It doesn't sound close, but when you keep in mind, of course, the fact that John Doble's pace right now is matching Smith, it would only take a couple of laps for potentially Smith to be off the pace that he'd like to be setting, or Doble to put in some faster laps, and we could suddenly see a twist in the tail there. Oh, goodness me, and there's a car off into the gravel. Now, who was that into the gravel? I think that was Casper Brotner, who in fact has to cut the whole of the Casio Triangle chicane. He brings the car to practically a standstill there before he rejoins in order to avoid any automated slowdowns. But there's something very wrong with that car for old dudes in cars black, and he brings it straight into the pits. And for the Danishman, I think there's a lot more of a story there than meets the eye out of 130R. And when he comes into the pits, I think there's going to be some sizable repair work on the car. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we have a replay that explains the story. He made his way in towards 130R into left-hand and mounting that apex curve very high, and in the end as the car dropped off the curb into the tyre barrier, and well, for Casper Brotner it was millimetres too much curve, and in the end it's come back to bite him dearly, and that's why he was just gradually avoiding the curve there, making sure not to rejoin, because I don't think the front suspension of that car is very obliging. It's really having to try and line it up with the pit lane and then just drive straight in, and well, with the off-tracks and whatnot he'll pick up from that, I think he's just simply had to say, I'll have to take those as well. As we return to your live pictures just in time as he leaves the pit lane. Meanwhile, we return to some key battling here in what is the battle for third place in the Prime class, and this is Alan Lever who leads that battle for UKSimRacing Stewart in P21 overall ahead of Jeff Griffiths right behind him as they make their way on through the long right-hand return for 12 and up towards the braking zone of Spoon they go, and as they do so, well, right now Griffiths has been getting closer over the last couple of laps, albeit it should be said last lap the two of them were identical in terms of lap times, both setting a 2-minute 0.68 to the nearest 100, but look at that run that Jeff Griffiths has just had off the corner. He's right on board with the Bill Racing driving the number 86, literally there in the toe, looking to the inside here, and is he going to try and go for into 130? No, he doesn't, but I think that the temptation was very clear. I think that's a big message to Alan Lever, which is, I may be in the car that's not strong in the straight, but I can stay with you wherever we go at Suzuka. And as they make their way on through Casio Triangle here, Lever right now will be looking more and more in his rear view mirrors and hoping that Audi V10 engine in the back of that Lamborghini will be able to keep him safe on the long stretch up towards 1. As they charge the way down the start of the straight, you can see 3.5 seconds to the gap. Griffiths gradually gaining here in the toe, but instead of getting started to hit the upper limit of the red bar as he makes way in towards turn 1 onto the brakes, dropping all the way down to 4th gear, then to 3rd. I think almost missed timing his shift in fact. I think Griffiths just trying to protect the tyres there by delaying that downshift to 3rd. We've seen so many drivers get caught out in the rear end by bringing the 4th to 3rd transition too quickly. But Griffiths really trying to protect the car, and I think recognising that his pit stop's coming up, and if he can't beat Lever in terms of battling him on circuit, he'll beat him in the pits by simply protecting the car and giving himself the tyre life that he may not need to change as many tyres when he goes to the pit stop. As they make their way on through turn number 7, things stay as they are for the time being, as they make their way on through, and as they charge the way now down towards the Degners, will mean while from their battle we do still have plenty going on further up the field as well. And indeed, we look back up to the top 4 here as they make the way on for into Spoon Curve. They are already, as you point out, 5 seconds clear of Daniel Shilcock in P5. Such is the pace they're running here, but Helder Gonçalves under pressure. The Track 6 Racing driver from GT3 Jack Taylor with Alex Millward just behind. And you'll notice that Jatatis is just gradually pulling away with this as he's opened the gap up to 1.6 seconds. That's a comfortable gap to lead for Jatatis, no question about it. But as they make the way in towards 130R, right now it's Porsche ahead of Porsche, followed by 2 more Porsches. The Porsche 992 is looking strong in the elite class, albeit it does seem as though here Gonçalves starting to perhaps fall off a little bit of the pace cliff that he's had in the early stages of this race. Alternatively now just trying to do a little bit more fuel saving or tyre preservation in order to give himself a little bit more comfort going into the second stint of the race. Of course, we can't know exactly what his plan is, but we can tell you that Jack Taylor and Alex Millward are getting closer on every lap as they make the way onto lap number 14 of race near, and we head towards the half-an-hour mark. They coming through from them. We look to James Armstrong here, the elite driver, still trying to pick his way through. Currently in P7 elite class. He's got a long way to go. He runs Reece Saunders at the bottom of your picture there, but Armstrong on the inside here on none other than Chris Houseway. Houseway on the right, and as they made the way into turn 1, Houseway not fighting this night. It's not his fight, and therefore just steering it clear as they head in towards turn number 2. And James Armstrong picking up another name as he makes his way in through the S's. Then we look back to Matt Hisley here, it's all over the back of Rob Zelby, and well, the pro driver chasing after the Pro-Am. And for Hisley, this is a bit of a frustrating moment, given the fact right in front of Zelby by 1.5 seconds is the entire run of pro drivers all the way up to race leader Nicholas Wright. But right now Hisley just cannot find a way past the Pro-Am leader, and that's the way the cards have fallen for the two of them. And Zelby won't mind this, he'll be just running his Pro-Am race happily in P15. And well, Hisley puts too much pressure on. I wouldn't be surprised if the UKSimRacing driver potentially decides to back out and let the Sochi Motorsports Lamborghini go. But right now, Zelby, I think, being confident that his pace is enough that he can just stay ahead of the number 14. But Hisley, meanwhile, I think has other ideas here as they make their way into the hairpins. What is for them the 14th time of asking, but they stay exactly as they are as they power out and in towards turn number 12. But meanwhile, speaking of prime battles, we also look back to Jeff Griffiths of Built Physical Racing as he continues to try and knock down the pace. Always out 11. Marvin Cruz, in fact, has fallen back into the clutches of this battle as they make their way through turn number 12. And it should be noted that Marvin Cruz, who was originally about 2 seconds up the road, has started to lose some time with regards to Lever and Griffiths and has fallen back towards them. Now only 8 tenths there as they make their way into Spoon Curve. And well, the old dudes in cars, a blue driver from Germany, I think focusing more on just preserving his tyres and also managing this race. But I think he's got to be careful of the fact if he backs the pace off too much, then he may end up finding himself in a fight for P2, and he could lose just as much on strategy as he could with regards to on-track battling as they make their way in towards the left-hand of 130R. Charging on around and up towards Casio Triangle. From there, we do look back to a frustrated but still fighting on all the same John Davis, the wrong stuff, currently in at P36 or P8 now class, and chasing after P7 in the class. Dave Robson, the driver who frustrated him 2 laps ago at what was the turn 1, turn 2 run, and Davis in the end going around when they went side by side on through the corner. And to be fair, Robson just held his line, and Davis in the end, I think on that inside line, just a little bit too much steering, trying to get the power down. But as they make the way on the back straight here, it's not going to give up his Davis, and we love to see that as he makes his way towards 130R. But can he find his way in? Takes a peek, can't quite find it. But meanwhile, off camera, I can see that James Conley's coming from the lead of the AM class to take his pit stop for today. So that's the first of the major top 5 AM pit stops. A surprise to be sure. But Conley, I think, may have worked it out that it's the right time to do so. In fact, he's going to come out in a lot of clear air currently, if my predictions are correct, because of the fact that most of the Anfield will pass him now. And in fact, here goes what will be Davis and Robson. You'll see Conley there briefly in the camera shot. So James Conley is going to come out in a clear track. He's timing this to perfection, in fact. Meanwhile, just a bit further behind in the rear of the picture, you do see there as James Conley makes his way on down, Chris Round and what is Casper Tunstead making the way into turn number 1. So Conley will come out a long way behind all this, even behind your sub-us. So therefore, Conley, I think, has picked the right time to pit. And I wouldn't be surprised if we suddenly see an avalanche of AM drivers all make their way into the pits over the next couple of laps. As Tunstead, they're flashing his lights to Chris Round to say to him, why are we like this? Can you just let me go? I think Round right now focusing more on just keeping the car together, given the fact things have not gone right over the course of this race. And Tunstead will feel the same after his incident that was much earlier in the race at 130R. But I think Chris Round here has other ideas in terms of just wanting to push on and knowing he needs to keep pumping these laps and he can't afford to lose any time, given the fact that the leaders of the prime class and indeed the majority of the top 10 have still got to take their mandated pit stop. As they make the way in towards and turns where's 8 to 9 there through the Degners. Meanwhile, we look back to Helder Gonçalves in P2. as he heads in towards the opening 2 quarters. Once again, 30 minutes complete, 30 minutes still to go here in Suzuka, plus that final lap. And as they come on down for turns 1 and 2, well, the point being here that Gonçalves right now continues to find himself being pressured by Taylor, but the gap to Tartas is back, holding around 1.5 to 1.6 seconds. So I wonder if Roger Tartas here is in fact managing that gap and using that gap as his staple mark in order to just save more fuel and protect the tyres and really manage the pace of this race. And well, as they head on through, we've got a word there from GZN High in the Twitch chat to say that Alex Hill has come into the pits early. And that was one of the pro drivers who in fact makes his way on around there. And as they roll their way on through the right hand, well, Hill not currently in. I believe he might be coming in at the end of this lap. Well, that might be the plan. They find their way through turn at number 7. The key point being here in the fact that given he's only 1 second off of Davies and then with 1.5 seconds off of Rice, this could be a strategic opportunity to try and leapfrog his way to victory in the pro class, given that Reece Saunders continues to be the buffer, if you will, between Davies and Rice, and Hill stuck behind the rear end of that buffer as they make their way up to the Kobayashi hairpin. And as they do with the back to Mark Colopop, they made their way through the right hand and in towards turn number 11 on the race they go. And the DCW Racing driver here under a bit of pressure from Lee Ramadan. Remember, they're flying P4 in the pro class, P11 overall as they come through turn number 12 here. And right now we really are in the calm before the storm. I think the pit stops that are awaiting us are going to tell us a lot more of the story. Jack Barker's in from what was at the time P37 or P7 in the AM class, so he's got to make a second stop today after an incident early on in the race which he didn't quite catch on camera. I can tell you the same for Dave Robson, who's now in, also for Matt Edmondson. Some more pit stops coming in as they make their way up towards turn number 14 here through 130 on. As they do so, well, now for our drivers, if we're not going to see them flinch for the pits, we will see it soon, because it does seem to be coming pit stop season for at least the middle of the field. I think a lot of drivers have been looking at sort of success that's occurred for James Conley, and well, in terms of where James Conley is at the moment on the circuit, here he is in a very comfortable position. But meanwhile, from where's James Conley, we need to look to Stefan Albanese and Darren Sharples here as they battle side by side in the run up towards 130R. And well, the DRS Esports driver in the prime class picking off another pro here in the form of Sharples, and well, the Italian absolutely flying, it must be said, as we are behind Simon Andre Livingston. I think wondering how he can also get past as they make their way on through the Casio Triangle chicane. And well, Albanese up to P21, still P6 in Pro-Am, but some more progress in his next target will be a Pro-Am driver, Simon Oldfield, with 3.27 seconds up the road and holding onto P5 in the Pro-Am class. As they head down towards turns 1 and 2, the drivers right now continue to settle in here for the long term. And well, we talked a little bit earlier about Alan Lever versus Jeff Griffiths, and this battle is still raging on as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the car from UKSimRacing Stuart team from the 657 and Lever. And well, Griffiths there so close that he could reach out and touch his rival's rear wing as they make their way through at the left-hand return at number 7. Griffiths there absolutely unperturbed, and I wouldn't be surprised if Griffiths has set that car up to run in dirty air today. In the fact we have seen over the opening 2 rounds of the season, Griffiths' pace in the race is much stronger than his qualifying potential from what we've noted, and therefore I think Griffiths really leaning into the fact he knows he's not going to qualify on pole, but what he can do is set the car to go attacking and then just be all over the back of his rivals. They make their way in towards turn 11 here, and well, again you can see 11 Griffiths slightly different lines. Griffiths being a little bit more conservative, letting the car go deep, trying to sling it out the corner. 11 meanwhile much more symmetrical in approach here and just trying to keep the car in a nice state. And I wouldn't be surprised the pressure he's under is making him worry about the fact he might be cooking those tyres as they make their way in towards Spoon Curve. As they do and make their way on through and charge onto the back straight. Meanwhile, we do look from them back to Albanese versus Sharples as they make their way into Spoon, and there you can see that in fact as they made their way into the corner, well, earlier on there has been a repass by Sharples versus Albanese, and I think that has happened on through the Degners from what I understand it, up towards the hairpin. But they power their way on down the back straight here. You see Sharples going over to the left-hand side, going defensive. I think trying to say to Albanese, look, I don't want to fight, but at the same time, don't try and make the move. We need to try and work together on the pace here. And they all go line of stern as they head through 130R up towards Casio and stay in at the rhythm here as they come towards the end of another lap of racing. But as they roll on through, meanwhile, looking up towards your leader in the pro class here of Nicholas Rice, P7 overall, and the Destino Motorsports driver from the USA. Right now as he weaves and winds his way through the S's, and just an update on Albanese, he's just come into the pits, therefore deciding enough's enough, he's going to get things done in the pits versus Sharples. All the come to the point of Nicholas Rice, who's got Ryan Davis so close as Armstrong. Meanwhile, looking up the inside there, going into turn number 7, and as they make the way around, well, Armstrong right now not flinching whatsoever, and Davis in the end, I think, having to pull the car slightly further wide than he would have liked to, and well, can Rice now capitalise on this to open up the gap a little bit further as they make the way from Degner 2 up towards the hairpin. Well, Armstrong, of course, will have his feeling where he can potentially make the move on his rival over Rice here and get close to Reece Saunders. But I wouldn't be surprised if Rice is looking in his rearview mirror and thinking, okay, James, I know you're coming, just work with me a little bit and let's try and make this work out for the both of us. That's what Rice will need here if he wants to try and keep the gap to Davis. It's gone up to 1.1 seconds, but at the same time, as they make the way on towards what will be Spoon Curve, well, if Armstrong decides to pull the trigger and Rice isn't ready for it, it could be costly for Rice in his battle for the pro lead. They wind their way on and through the second part of Spoon, now onto the back straight. Well, here they go then, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 cylinders versus 10, and more doesn't mean better necessarily, but Armstrong would like to disagree with that one as they power their way on down towards 130. You can see that Armstrong is incredibly close, but backs off as they make their way through the corner. Not enough distance to be able to get things done, and now Rice holds the position, but Armstrong here swings the inside on the brakes, and well, Rice sees it coming, leaves the door open, cuts back in, absolutely pitch perfect there, and that's what Nicholas Rice needed for Destino Motorsports, to not be under too much pressure from Ryan Davis immediately behind. The battle's been reset effectively, and it means now James Armstrong has completed his run from P43 up to P7 and can now start chasing down the remainder of the elite field if he wants to try and bring home at least the top 5, if not go for the podium, let alone at the win of this race. But with the best part of 24 minutes still left on the clock here in Japan, ladies and gentlemen, the fact we've still got plenty of pit stops to go for what is our top 17 of the field at least so far. Well, these pit stops, a lot of drivers I think waiting to take the pit stops and leaving it as late as possible here through fear of potentially getting caught in traffic. We do quickly say hello there to Simon Banda, who's enjoying the broadcast in the Twitch chat. Glad to see you tuning in, Simon. Hope you're doing well. And as all the drivers wind the way on through the S's here, meanwhile outside of the top 10, all the way down in P38, this is Steve Hughes from Racing. He's behind Rob Armstrong here, and these two have pitted, it should be pointed out, albeit Armstrong with a much shorter pit stop compared to Hughes. I wouldn't be surprised if Armstrong's got another pit stop on the cards, given his first pit stop has only been 5.43 second stationary time, and well, the majority of our stationary times for our drivers have been anywhere between 16 seconds and 30 seconds, depending on how much fuel and how many times have been changed on the car. As Hughes makes his way on down the back straight, he'll want to clear Armstrong sooner rather than later, for the simple reason that he's got a race to try and take on versus Stein Orsani, who's 5.2 seconds up the road and not getting away any time soon. As they come through the right into left here, the Redmond's Racing drivers still just pushing on as Armstrong makes his way on around there, and they both stay out for another lap. Well, we expect Hughes to do so, but as for Armstrong, we'll wait and see if there is another pit stop as they head down towards turn 1. And in fact, Hughes here very close. Will he look for the move here into the opening 2 quarters? I think he's going to take a little look for it, but not in the end. He decides against it, but only 2 tenths. That is attacking distance. And speaking of other drivers in attacking distance, this is Matt Hisley versus Chris Halsoy, and it's going to be very close. Hisley comes in there, and I think he'd argue he's squeezed. Halsoy would argue there's never space available to him. And, well, Hisley there, I think, now being unleashed after leaving Rob Zelby behind. Keep in mind, of course, that Hisley pitted, whereas Zelby has stayed out on the circuit, and Hisley frustrated, I think, and now just trying to make amends. We take a quick look back at what happened between Halsoy and Hisley there. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to give your thoughts, but here's the replay. So it was an error coming out of Degner 2 from the house that really led to the two being much closer than expected as they made their way onto the brakes here. Well, it does look as though, well, both drivers would argue they had the right to the apex. Hisley, I think, would argue that he could go late for it. Halsoy, I think, of a mind of, well, surely he can't go for a space that doesn't exist. And, well, the Norwegian driver there clearly flashing his lights in frustration. But meanwhile, Hisley carrying on there. And I think they might have a word about it after the race between them down in the garages. And as they make their way on through on the live pictures once again. Meanwhile, we look to your AM leader currently yet to pit, of course, of Neil Smith for UKSimRacing Mansell. And as he goes in towards turns 1 and 2, behind him Joshua Pratt, and the pro driver who has already pitted. And in fact, the leading driver who has pitted so far is Joshua Pratt. So he really is the waypoint or the marker now in terms of gauging for the remainder of our drivers who have yet to pit where they're going to come out in the field. Well, Smith just staying here, and this is what Pratt does not want. He doesn't want to be caught behind a driver who's yet to pit and just simply running his own pace. And to be fair to Smith, he's allowed to do this. There's no obligation for him to step away. He'll be focusing on just simply managing his race, being consistent, and the responsibility will be on Pratt to try and put enough pressure on Smith to try and get Smith into the headspace of, okay, I'll let you go. Alternatively, Pratt's got to force the move here as they make their way down for the Degners. But as they do, the 304 driver just carrying on. And well, the question is, where is James Connie? He's P4 in the AM class with P34, and Connie is starting to bump into some traffic now, and that could, afterwards, a very early pit stop in the class, the first driver in the AM class to pit inside the top 10, always mandated pit stop in regards to that fuel load. Well, Connie now might be seeing his progress stumped somewhat, given the fact he is 32 seconds off of Smith as they make the way on for, in fact, 42 seconds off. We should correct ourselves there, but meanwhile, hold the phone in the fact we do have a number of drivers into the pits here for their pit stops in the elite class. It's Helder Gonzalez, Alex Millward, Reece Saunders and James Armstrong all coming down, and as they do, we've also got Nicholas Rice into the pits. So has what is Mark Collicott, in fact not Mark Collicott, excuse us there on the incorrect information. We've got Marvin Cruz in as he makes his way on down, but as the majority of the field staying out in terms of our top 10. So it is going to be all now about whether these pit stops will benefit our drivers. But you can see that Armstrong leaving the pits as Cruz comes into his pit box. But as they all make the way out, will mean, well, where is Helder Gonzalez? In fact, he's come out, and he's come out ahead of Alex Millward, albeit he's also got the gap of where's Alan Lever between Millward and himself, and that's going to be helpful. But he's come out behind none other than Tom Weston, who we haven't really spoken about since the start of today, and the DCW Racing driver right now in the number 44 yet to appear, and this could be really the scuppering of a plan for Helder Gonzalez, who's been doing an absolutely fantastic race so far, but he's trying to jump his way into P2 once again. But Jack Taylor, I think right now, will be thinking, can I get ahead of Gonzalez, given the fact he's got a bit of traffic to deal with. I'm sure the TE team will be on the radio to their driver to say you need to push now because Gonzalez is in traffic and this is not helping him whatsoever, because they make the way in towards the Kobashi hairpin as they go up towards the braking zone here. Meanwhile, we do look back to your pro leader, at least on circuit, but perhaps not on strategy, and this is Ryan Davies right now as the TE Car Marte driver running P4 overall makes his way on through the spoon left-handers as he heads on out and down the hill he drops. Well, Alex Hill only 9/10 behind, these two running pretty much in formation together for the majority of the race so far, and I think just keeping enough distance in order to work together and be ready to also potentially have their own little bit of battling towards the end of the race, which is a great effort so far, but how far is it going to take them? As meanwhile, here comes Helder Gonzalez versus Tom Weston. He's going to look up the inside, he's being made to do it into 130R, and it's going to be a challenging one for the Portuguese driver. This might be a test of where he comes out, but in the end he has to back out. It's not enough. Jotatas, Taylor and Shilcock are in the pits right now, so for Helder Gonzalez, this really is going to be on a knife edge as they break the way into the Casio Triangle chicane. He can't find his way past Weston. Shilcock is already starting to leave his pit box. I think in fact he's overshot his pit box, but Mel Gonzalez looking around the outside here. He's going to force the issue. Meanwhile, Weston into the pits, and as they come on through, where is Jotatas? Well, Jotatas leaves the pit lane. Also, here comes Jack Taylor, and Taylor has jumped ahead of Gonzalez. As a result, Gonzalez has lost too much time in that battle. Weston, it's cost him dear, and Alex Millward even further back there. So Jotatas is effectively your race leader, with Rob Selby leading overall right now, but yet to pit. But once he does pit, it'll be Holders Jotatas back into the lead. Jack Taylor's now in P2. Helder Gonzalez is now down to P3 in the elite class and overall, and Alex Millward is in P4 with Daniel Shilcock a bit further back. And how the momentum continues to change here as Ryan Davies meanwhile has come out of the pit lane, and as he does so, well, he's going to re-emerge as your pro leader ahead of Alex Hill, with Nicholas Rice dropping back behind. So the Destino Motorsports driver, that only a pit stop inside the top 5 of the pro class has not worked out. He's putting 1.5 seconds off of Hill, and now he's got to go on at the offensive, as meanwhile we've had 2 pit stops for James Armstrong. I wonder if there's been speed in the pit lane for the Arnage Competition driver after making his way all the way up into the top 7 of the elite class, and it's all gone so very wrong. He still wants to finish the race because if he takes P7 in the elite class, he still gets major points. And the points are scored based on class position, not overall. But Nicholas Rice, meanwhile, coming back to the key point of information here, losing lead of the pro class. Now he's got to do it the hard way on circuit if he wants it back. But from him, meanwhile, we do look to Alan Lever here, who's coming immediately out behind Tom Weston, who's also snuck in behind Krista Halsoy, and in second place, UKSimRacing Stuart Prime driver here. Well, he'll be focusing on what can be as he tries to battle his way on past his rivals in front of him, albeit as they come out to take the 2. I think it's going to be easier said than done for the Englishman as he makes his way into the next braking zone. And a good point there from GT3 with regards to Joshua Pratt, who from pitting very early on in this race is now here down in P6 in the prime class. He's lost a position inside the top 5 and battling side by side with Mark Collicott. Collicott's not going to give up there, no doubt about it, as they make the way through Spoon Curve and as they make the way through the left-hander. Well, right now Pratt has to do things the hard way once again, and we keep saying it, but the truth of the matter is, right now those pit stops that haven't worked out, or those undercut strategies that haven't worked out, it does mean the drivers are now got to fight hard, and with tyres with diminishing life, even though they may have changed 1 or 2 tyres on the car, with diminishing life and low fuel in the car, plus also 15 minutes of racing left to go, it's going to be a deadly combination. But for our drivers here, it's just another day in the office in terms of trying to push it and being in it to win it. As meanwhile, Rob Selby into the pit lane here, he leaves his pit box, and where's this going to put him back? The prime leader as he came into the pits, or as he leaves the pits, I get the feeling this is going to put him right and firmly back in the prime lead. And in fact, I can't even see, they're only making their way through Casio Triangle right now as Alan Lever and Jeff Griffiths, and Rob Selby into P11. Well, goodness me, you're looking at a phenomenal drive to victory in the prime class if things stay as they are, albeit, of course, let's not talk too much about it because the commentator's curse, and it's not over until that checkered flag is waved. But meanwhile, as we look to Casper Tunstead here, battling with Darren Sharples. And these two right now, the UKSimRacing drive just behind the old dudes and cars blue drivers, they break the way in turns 1 and 2. They're fighting for P11 in the pro class here as they come on around, and as they roll up the hill in towards the S's now. Well, it's not worked out for either of them as well, with Sharples taking a little bit of a later pit stop compared to Tunstead, and Tunstead with quite a difficult race, it would seem, in the fact an early incident cost him a lot of places and also some life in the car, and therefore right now they're both battling for the scraps of the points outside the top 10. It's still valuable points there. I think they'll both be thinking there could have been a lot more on the table today if things had gone their way. As they come on through the long left-hander turn at number 7. Looking back to the AMP class here, Shaminda Deans are currently P6 in class, and the Deans put a drive in front of him. He's going to be seeing Simon Hartley go around, and Deans are losing the rear as well, as they both in synchronicity. Well, that was a reaction there from Shaminda Deans to try and avoid going into the wayward side of Simon Hartley's car. But the problem is there, of course, when you're going for a right apex, you're having to stamp the brakes on even more. You've got to stamp the car to left and right off the circuit, which you don't want to do potentially for track limits. Alternatively, what you've got to do is try and get a car to stop with the steering that's already bent in one direction, and for Dean, so that's exactly what happens when you try to do the latter. But as they make the way on through right now, there is a change of position there and some damage between the two of them, and I think they might be just trying to settle things here in terms of who's going to take the position back or who's going to hold the position going forward. But John Davis gaining 2 places for the mistakes of one corner, albeit not the way he perhaps expected it to play out, as they made the way out of Dayton 2, and we can see here Hartley taking a peek on the inside into turn number 10, and Deanson just holding his position as they make the way in towards the hairpin. As they come through at the left-hander. Meanwhile, we do look back to what is Rob Selby here as he battles side by side with John Eddowes, albeit I think it's 4 of 8. Okay, John, I see you coming, and letting him go there. And Selby knowing he doesn't need to do anything spectacular. In fact, Selby's lost 3 places, including the one from Eddowes, so he's lost 2 very recently. And I think there's been an incident for Rob Selby somewhere out of the circuit. And, well, what exactly has happened? We've got a quick replay to explain. So this was into 130R, and in the end, rear of the... Oh, goodness me, for Rob Selby, that was into the barrier, albeit not as harshly as it could have been, but that was a very near miss. Thankfully, just a kiss touch there against the tyre barrier, but I just wonder now how much that left side suspension is going to be ruining. In fact, you can see there the car weaving slightly as he came through 17, and therefore I think the steering's now an angle for Rob Selby, and is that going to be the perhaps undoing of the UKSimRacing Stewart's drive to the win at the very end of this race, given the fact that damage could become even more hurting as this race now goes on, given the fact he might be having to lose a lot of speed through certain corners, and as he makes his way out of turn number 11 and onwards towards turn number 13, 12 minutes still left to look off, and he does have a gap over Alan Lever of what is 8.5 seconds currently, so there's a long way to go for Alan Lever. And also keep in mind they're both of the UKSimRacing teams, and therefore really the driver right now who'll be thinking most about this will be Jeff Griffiths, who's in P3 of the class, immediately behind Lever by 2 seconds, and wondering how he can get involved. But indeed, Rob Selby, it could be a dire last few moments of this race. But meanwhile, as we look for our prime leader, back to our pro P5 driver, we should say, Mark Collicott for DCW Racing. We've got Joshua Pratt behind right now, but Pratt being held to half a second behind as they make their way on through the Casio Triangle chicane. And will these battles now starting to enter their late stages in terms of our drivers here, all focusing now on the small battle that's in front of them, knowing that the big places to be gained at 10-15 seconds up the road, where it's going to come more down to Lady Luck, alternatively, rather than pace. But as they make their way in towards turns 1 and 2 here, Collicott right now just keeping his head down and trying to wrap up the top 5 of the Pro class here, with Pratt right on his heels as they make their way on towards the S's. And as they do so, we look back from the rear of the DCW racing and driver as he bounces his way on between the curbing and making his way up the hill and in towards turns 5 and 6 here. So right now for Collicott, definitely one of those races whereby it's gone quite well and he'll want to end it on the positive note here. But Pratt as well, with what did work out in strategy, he'll be wanting to try and get a place back to please the team principal and make amends here as they make their way on for return at number 7 in towards 8. As they do so, meanwhile, another big change of foot as well, and something we haven't talked about, we should talk about, is the fact you do have a new AM leader after all the pit stops, and it is Neil Smith. You may remember we questioned James Connolly pitting so early compared to his rivals. Well, Smith has come out ahead of Connolly, and the gap between the two of them standing away 7 seconds. As we do look back to James Connolly here as he makes way out turn number 2, Smith going into turn 4 already at the S's, and therefore Connolly's got to do it the long way now. But one thing to keep in mind as well, on that last lap, James Connolly took 1.5 seconds out of Smith. I mean, it's a long way to go for Connolly, there's no doubt about it, but if he carries up that rate of closure over the remaining 10 minutes, he could be there on the last lap to attack Smith, albeit he does have the pressure of Cy Anstey and also Matt Whitefoot between them. And that in itself could also prove to be the thing that thwarts Connolly's charge to try and take the win here. And keeping in mind that Smith, of course, your winner last time out, my memory does serve me correctly. So therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if Smith here absolutely eager to try and make it 2 out of 2 in terms of wins in succession. As they roar their way in towards what will be at the hairpin here right now, Connolly just keeping his head down and knowing that this race is not over until that final lap is completed, and therefore anything can happen. Makes way from turn 12 and in towards 13. Up front, Arnage Competition continues to lead here in the elite class, and overall it's 1.9 seconds between himself and Jack Taylor as Taylor follows him on through turn number 7, and then further for the best part of 3 seconds behind is always Helder Gonçalves, and Gonçalves there in P3, knowing that Taylor managed to get the jump on him in the end. Tiki Sport driver, I think, just now hoping to hold on to P2 and waiting to see if Jatarsis makes the same. But the one thing with regards to your race leader is it's very, very rare that you'll ever see Jatarsis make an error. But as they come out of the hairpin, meanwhile from them, Alex Moore and Daniel Shilcock complete your top 5 overall in the elite class. And you do have Reece Saunders P6 and Brian Davis, who's your pro leader, being which here he is, and holding on to that pro lead ahead of Alex Hill, Nicholas Rice and Cleda Ramadan, who complete your top 10 overall. As Ryan Davis makes his way into the hairpin now, coming on through. Hill still with 7 tenths behind here, closing a little bit but not too much. Nicholas Rice meanwhile not quite on the pace of these two, it would seem, so therefore it would be suggestive here that right now Tiki Sport looking for a 1-2 in the pro class, and it is coming their way more and more with every corner made. But as they make their way in towards Spoon Curve, meanwhile from them we do look a lot further down the order, and this is Stefan Albanese, and well, the DRS eSports driver on the rear of Ollie Pimley as he chases after the pro driver, and the Prime here looking to take another pro scalp. Indeed, he's had plenty of battling with Casper Brotner earlier on today, and now he's looking to have a bit of a fight with Ollie Pimley before all is said and done in the fight for PM25 overall. And whilst he's not battling for class position, you can't take away from the fact the Italian driver absolutely loves going battling, regardless of what class of driver he's up against, and he'll do everything he can in order to stay 1 step ahead. He makes his way into turn at number 12. From them, we do look back up to what is Hisley here, as he's got the growing pressure of Krista Halsoy. Remember, these two had a little bit of an altercation at the Kobashi hairpin just 5 laps ago, which saw Hisley get ahead, and the Turkish driver now under pressure from the Norwegian as they made the way on through Casio Triangle. And in fact, we jump on board here with Halsoy as he makes his way onto what for them is lap number 27, and with David Robson in the pit lane. In fact, we had John Doble just come into the pit lane, and so has Chris Brown. There's been an incident off camera. We will try and come to that shortly, ladies and gentlemen. explain the story there, but a late incident which definitely could prove to be upsetting for some in this field. But Krista Halsoy coming back to the focus of our cameraman's attention. On track 6 racing driver here, trying to climb his lead for P8 in the Pro class, and albeit I think it'll be a bit incensed with how he lost the place, but right now just getting back to the classic race there at Suzuka and looking to try and find that place, given the fact that Western is 2.6 seconds wide and is closing little by little, as Shuey points out. Western from DCW Racing could be there right at the end as well to make it a three-way fight for the 8th place spot. Coming out of turn number 7, you can see how Hensley able to get the power down a little bit more aggressively. Halsoy really now starting to run on rims in terms of the amount of tyre life available on that right hand side, it would seem, with the way the car was sliding out the corner as they make their way through the deck. There is Hisley losing the rear end slightly, and it seems to neutralise the gains of Hisley coming out of 7. Meanwhile, Halsoy now on the charge here. No, he's got the better brakes. The Porsche gets very close down to braking, and of course it's that natural concertina effect. But you can see on the exit they're closing off 1.5 times, and Halsoy on a completely different planet in terms of getting the throttle down and attacking on corner exit. And all the Norwegian driver, we said only moments ago, he hasn't got that much tyre life on the right hand side tyres, but he's got some tyre life left, got plenty of brake pad to go with it. Was crying out absolutely on the hustle here as they make the way on through Spoon Curve, and as he does so, they're nice and tight exit. You can see Hisley getting the better exit there on the whole, with no dirty air to worry about, just able to get the throttle in and therefore not worry about the change that confronts him ahead as they make the way up towards the 130R. We do look from these two as they charge up through, and there's Weston in the rear of the picture as he makes his way in towards the left-hander, and as he charges his way on around. We do have that big question of what happened between John Doble, it might have been Chris Round, or two separate incidents at the same time. We've got a replay to explain, and here's what happened firstly to John Doble. Well, there's the aftermath of what happened, and all the rear of the car completely coming apart, and Chris Round out on the grass there, so I think there's been something between the two of them, but what exactly set things off, we're not quite sure. We have a further replay, which takes a look back earlier on, and it was side by side through turn number 12 here, as the T-Systems were Kimi Drive defending, and in the end, oh goodness me, the two of them just coming into contact, and Dobie turned to all Chris Round, meanwhile, taking the rallycross line there over the exit curve at turn number 12, and recovering, but for both drivers, that was race ending, it would seem, or causing to both have to be towed to the pits, and disaster abounding for the two. Indeed, it hasn't been a day for either of them to celebrate here at Suzuka. But meanwhile, coming back to your live pictures, still 4 minutes left on the clock, and plus the final lap that comes with it, and the majority of our battles now starting to fall a little bit silent. But meanwhile, James Connolly here not giving up in his chase of Neil Smith, but knowing he's got to pick off Matt Whitefoot and Sight Anthony respectively if he wants a shot of the AM win, with Smith being 6 seconds up the road. And Connolly very close there in the run through turns at 1 and 2, but the problem is he can be as close as this as much as he wants, but he's got to affect the bars and into the S's. Unless your rival makes a mistake, it's very hard to make a move happen here and go too wide on throw, simply because of the fact you're battling uphill and you're battling in the dirty air for a whole series of direction changes. And even though the Ferrari is nimble, it's not nimble enough to beat the effects of understeer as they make their way into turn 7. You can see they're trying to force Whitefoot open the door, and does so successfully, catching Whitefoot out, and James Connolly in the end forcing was a mistake out of Whitefoot. A brilliant attempt there, cycling him out, and as they make their way in towards Degner 1, well, Whitefoot in lets it go, and that's a place game. But now Sight Anthony will be the next driver that Connie's got to find his way on through, and then it will be Neil Smith who awaits him at the top of the standings to try and take that win back. But given the laps remaining, I think Connie right now is going to need to pull out some miracle laps here to make it happen, although never say never. And as they make their way on towards turn and number 12, here is Neil Smith for comparison, making his way to the end of 12 already, and with Sight Anthony behind, I think Smith right now will not be pushing as hard. He'll just be keeping an eye on that gap to Connolly, and knowing that all he's got to do is complete 2 more laps after this one in order to bring home what will be back-to-back victories, and indeed the first double winner in the AM class of this season. As he powers his way down the back straight with Sight Anthony there, pulling it out of the draft in order to burn off some of the excess speed and not really put Smith under any pressure. Meanwhile, we look back to Ryan Davies here, your leader in the Pro class, P7 overall. He's got Alex Hill right behind the 2 TeamSport teammates here. Well, they're still running together, but keep in mind as well, and we have had it pointed out in the Twitch chat a bit earlier of GZen High, in the fact that TeamSport do have their own little seasonal awards they do give to their drives, including battles between Tiki drives, and therefore there is a little bit of motivation here for them to fight each other to a degree. Albeit I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Zen High, the team principal, is on the radio to the most saying, well, you're welcome to battle, but keep it clean, given the fact otherwise we've got a 1-2 on the cards here in the Pro class, and they won't want to spoil that with Nicholas Rice only 1.2 seconds behind and eager and wetting his lips, I think, to try and take that win off the pair of them after it didn't work out on the strategy. But as they come in towards Spoon Cove, you see both drivers, they're really running it all the way out to that exit curve, and therefore the grip level started to go on these cars, but knowing as well they've got to maintain the pace, and it really is a dancing act between being on the ragged edge of adhesion and making sure to keep it on the circuit. They make the way up towards 130 on the charge here. Gap stand at 4:10 still, and Rice not closing any further at the moment as they come in towards Casio Triangle. You can see that Davis again, the rear of the car just started to snap loose there, and the tyre life really waning as he makes his way on through Casio Triangle, and he'll so close now. 2.5 tenths, they made it into the start finish straight, and the V10 Audi absolutely roaring in the chase versus the flat six of the Porsche as they make their way onto lap number 30 here. They charge away down, and will Hill within 2 tenths here. Will he try and make the move happen? No, he waits. We may have one more lap after this. Our leaders right now are going through turn number 7. We may be on the final lap. It's going to be very nip and tuck here, just as to how many more laps we've got to go, ladies and gentlemen. But as they make their way through, we look back to Simon Oldfield here in the Team Badger Steel machine as he continues his journey from P5 in the Pro Class stage, chasing after Darren Sharples right now. And with Sharples in the Pro Class there, this is more for overall position rather than what will be, what will be any further points for the two drivers. But still, Oldfield enjoying the race there and looking to try and take one more place. Marvin Cruz essentially being defended now by his teammate Darren Sharples. Old Duty cars blue, but as they come on to what will be for them at lap 30 as well. Right now, Oldfield's got to pick off one before the other, getting very close there. But I think Sharples just proving to make the car as wide as he needs to in order to feel confident. And meanwhile, off camera in the battle for the AM lead, I can tell you that Neil Smith has let Science go, and the gap between Smith and Connolly still standing at 5.5 seconds. It does look as though Smith is looking safe for the victory there, but as the clock strikes 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen, we look through from the battle of P23 back to the front of the field, and this is Jack Taylor in P2, but there's one man right now who makes the back towards Casio Triangle, and for Absolute Motorsport A-Slev, it has been a pole position to savour, and as he comes through the last couple of corners, it's going to be a win to savour as well, for Geraldo Shatatas will take victory in Suzuka in round number 3 of the championship in the elite class and overall, and Jack Taylor takes 2nd place, and then it will be Helder Gonçalves P3 behind him, Alex Millward P4, Daniel Shilcott P5 shortly as they all make the way on through. And here comes the Tractics Racing driver. Reece Saunders will then be a further 10 seconds behind as he makes his way on down for Altitude Esports in his debut for the team here today, and it'll be 4 seconds back. So this man who's going to make it the pro win today, he holds off Alex Hill to line, and it's Ryan Davis, your pro winner in a 1-2 in the class for TE Simsport. Nicholas Rice P3 in the rear of the picture there, and it'll be Khalid Ramadan, who just missed out on the podium but takes a P4 in the pro class, ahead of Joshua Pat, John Eddowes and Mark Collicott. Rob Selby comes up through the final corner, and it's going to be an absolutely deserved win for the UKSimRacing Stewart driver in the pro class. They're P14 overall ahead of Mitt Hesley and then Krista Halsoy. Tom Weston comes on through ahead of what will be Alan Leather, who will be your 2nd place prime driver here. 13, in fact 12 seconds off the race winner Rob Selby, and then it will be shortly James Armstrong comes on through in the end after a drive-through penalty to take P19. Casper Tunstead follows through in P20, but behind him Marvin Cruz takes the final spot on the prime podium, his first prime podium of the season, with Darren Sharples, Simon Alton and Jeff Griffiths then coming through in the rear of the picture. And then we have some time to go, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to Simon Andre Livingston, who makes a P7 in the prime class here as the car, I think, is running low on fuel, but he gets it to the line. Science will then follow, but then this man comes on through to make it 2 wins in a row in the AM class. It's Neil Smith for UKSimRacing Mansell, who takes the AM win P30 ahead of James Connolly, who today takes 2nd place behind his teammate, but knowing that strategy cost him the win in the AM class. Matthew White at P32 ahead of Steiner Sani, Steve Hughes, and then Jack Barker in a miraculous 2-stop strategy comes on through to take 3rd place in the AM class there, the privateer, and his run of podiums continues ahead of John Davis, who after a nightmare start to this race takes P4 in the AM class, and it will be Cy Hartley who will be your last lead lap finisher, who takes 5th place in the AM class there, P37 overall. And goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race we've had today, but those are all your finishers on the lead lap. And I do believe all the drivers have taken their checkered flags, but Cy Hartley parks up there and indeed just taking it nice and easy to bring it to a standstill. Absolutely exhausted, I think, no question about it. And perhaps having a chat there with what is his rival of, I believe, Steiner Sani. Well, as they park up, Neil Smith right now on a cool down lap, and what a cool and collected drive from the UKSimRacing Mansell driver in the end, making the move happen on the strategy, and after taking the lead of the AM class, never looking back ahead of his teammate, to be fair, but 2 teammates can have the right to battle on circuit. But for Smith today, he's put another win in his pocket, and that's going to be a huge result carrying forward in the championship. And James Connolly, meanwhile, as he calls them down. It wasn't to be his win today, but at the same time as well, as we see Zeros there in the Twitch chat saying take a bow, Neil, and giving a round of applause. Both the UKSimRacing Mansell drivers deserve a round of applause in the AM class, because it's the first Class 1-2 of the season in the AM class there, matching the 1-2 in the Pro class of Tiki Simsport, Davies and Hill, and what a drive from the two teams. And meanwhile, well, for John Davies, I don't think he's going to quite believe how he's recovered a P4 out of this. So the wrong stuff, it definitely did go very, very wrong, but somehow he's managed to make a right out of it all. And we're just up the road from him. The Ford GT continues to bring the AM podiums together. Jack Barker then, the 163, making another one count, and his championship campaign is not going away. And the Ford GT, it may be an ancient relic in this field, but by no means is it out of the AM hunt. As all drivers make their way in to the pit lane, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, we start off with the overall finishing positions, focusing on your top 10 and also the podium finishers in the respective classes. And here we can see, subject to those stewards' inquiries, round 3 going to Heraldus Jatatus overall, and in the elite class, Absolute Motorsport Ace taking the win in the end by 2.6 seconds over Tiki Simsport Tyres' Jack Taylor, and Helder Gonzalez completing the overall and elite podium there for Tractix Racing. Strategy was the difference between Taylor and Gonzalez, and I think Gonzalez will be frustrated that it wasn't the runner-up spot, but still holding off Alex Millward there for Effect Simulations, and then Daniel Shilcock a further 5 seconds behind for Tractix Racing, completing a top 5. Reece Saunders P6 ending the run of the elite drivers there for Altitude Esports, with then your pro winner Ryan Davies taking P7 for Tiki Simsport Colmarte, had a sister team drive from Kimmy of Alex Hill, and then Nicholas Rice round off your pro podium there for Destino Motorsports and completing the run to P9. Khalid Ramadan rounds off your top 10 for Somsport in a race day where he wasn't quite on the pace of the top 3 in the pro class, but was there waiting to pounce should they make mistakes or anything go wrong up front. And Josh Pratt there, P11 for Tiki Simsport Corpa, best the rest P11, and then the strategy cost him a potential podium today and what could have been an all Tiki Pro podium. But then as we can see, John Eddowes, Mark Collicott and Rob Zelby bringing the run to P14, with the prime driver there driving an absolutely faultless race for UKSimRacing Stewart, and your top 15 being completed by Met Hisley for Sloshie Motorsports. We now continue our run through for focusing on the podium finishers in the Pro-Am classes and the Am class, and adding to Rob Zelby on the Pro-Am podium and lever there for UKSimRacing Stewart, making it a 1-2 as well. So in fact 3 team 1-2s today across the classes, and UKSimRacing Stewart having that in the Pro-Am class with lever holding on, and well from him Marvin Cruz a further what was in the end 10 seconds behind the old dudes in cars blue driver, rounding off the Pro-Am podium there in what was a brilliant drive from the number 90. And then coming on to what is the AM class, and there you can see at the bottom of the stands, P28 for UKSimRacing Mansell, your AM winner of Neil Smith, and indeed a drive today which you'll be absolutely proud of, ahead of teammate James Conley, a 1-2 for them in the AM class, and then further on down Jack Barker there, P34. He may have been the best part of what is 17 seconds off of Smith, the AM winner, but still he'll feel a winner today, taking that 3rd place on the AM podium. And then our last lead lap finisher, P37, Cy Hartley for Tiki Simsport Colmarte, and then finishing a lap down there. As we can see, Shaminda Deansub being the first to drive to finish a lap down on his return to the grid for this series as of this round for Tiki Simsport Tire, and then followed up by Rob Armstrong, Noya Sabas, and Matt Edmondson, and then finishing 5 laps down, the triplet of Chris Round, John Doble, and Dave Robson. And then our 2 retirees from the race will be classified as non-finishers as they did not complete over half the race distance, Joel Dutton and Daniel Pays there in difficult races for the 2. So 46 starters, 44 finishers, and in the end 37 of them being on the lead lap. But as we now come on to the individual class finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen, starting of course with the elite class, here we can see Heraldus Jatatus, your elite winner for Absolute Motorsport Ace by 2.6 seconds over Jack Taylor, and Helder Gonzalez completing that podium for the elite class. A further what was 2.5 seconds behind Alex Millward in a race day for the Effect Simulations driver. Well, I think it was more about bringing the points home rather than having a true shot at the win, but still sometimes that's the way it's got to be done. And Daniel Shilcock the same for Tractix Racing, it was always within arm's reach if there was any drama, but not quite on the pace of the top 4. Reece Saunders, meanwhile, P6 there, a bit further on down, but he did say in the build-up to tonight he was worried about the Porsche 992 being very sketchy through at 130R. And in the end, playing it safe and bringing home a key 6th place result, head of Cy Anthony for Symphony Esports. And James Armstrong, your last finisher in the elite class, starting from the back of the field, but in the end, what looked to be a drive-through penalty as a minimum, if not more, the Arnage Competition driver having it all go wrong and finishing at P8 in the end. Then coming on to the pro class, And as we can see here, Ryan Davies, your winner by 2.5 tenths for Tiki Sport Car Marte, ahead of Kimi's Alex Hill. And then at Destino Motorsports is Nicholas Rice following on through there to round off the podium. It was a further, 5 seconds to Khalid Ramadan for Somsport in P4 ahead of Joshua Pratt, with the Tiki Sport Corporate Drive being followed up by Tiki Sport Tyres John Eddowes, who made his way through from what was in the end a difficult start. In fact, down outside the top 10 at one point, but he finished just outside the top 5. And then Mark Collicott, Matt Hisley, Krista Halsoy and Tom Weston completing your pro top 10. It was a further 13 seconds to Casper Tunstead at P11, ahead of Darren Sharples, with Ollie Pimley, Casper Rotner and Daniel Pays completing the standings there, and Daniel Pays the only retiree in the pro class. Then coming on to the prime class. And here we can see the confirmation. Rob Selby, your winner by 11.1 seconds in the end for UKSimRacing Stewart, ahead of teammate Alan Lever. And from then 1-2, it was a further 11 seconds to Marvin Cruz for Old Dudes in Cars Blue. Team Badger still Simon Oldfield picking up a P4 there. Not quite on the podium, but still he'll be pleased with that. A strong top 5 finish there, and indeed definitely showing his credentials for future podiums. And Jeff Griffiths a bit further behind for Built Visible Racing, only 2 seconds off in the end, and questioning what could have been if strategy had been a bit more kind to him. Stefan Albanese, P6 for DRS Esports, fighting with everybody today and enjoying the batting, no doubt about it. Ahead of Stephen Andre Livingston, then Matt White for Steinar Sani and Steve Hughes completing your top 10. And then a lap down there, Rob Armstrong and Noya Sabas ahead of Chris Round, who was 5 laps down. And in the end, your sole retiree in the prime class, Joe Duton there, a non-finisher but listed as P14 for the wrong stuff. And then coming on to the AM class, last but not least. And here we can see Neil Smith, your winner by 5.8 seconds in the end, ahead of teammate from UKSimRacing Mansell, James Conley, and Jack Barker a further 8 seconds behind, completing at the AM podium. From the privateer, it was the wrong stuff John Davis, who recovered well to P4 in the end, 13 seconds clear of Cy Hartley for Tiki Sport Car Marte, then finishing a lap down at both Shaminda Dean Sir and Matt Edmondson, with 5 laps down apiece for John Doble and Dave Robson, but all of your AM drivers making it to the checker flag and classified as finishers. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the race results and what a race it has been to return to our racing in the UKSimRacing GT3 League Season 12, no doubt about it. But just before we do step away in preparation for our post-round interviews for our volunteer drivers, we'd just like to let you know and remind you, of course, that you've been enjoying the racing today, and you've been enjoying it all the way through the season, but you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, or alternatively to the Twitch channel, your preferred media platform for tuning in, we definitely recommend you do so that way you don't miss the broadcast. Keep in mind, we do have weekly broadcasts brought to you live from Circuit Side. On Sundays, it's the GT3 League like today, and on Thursdays, of course, it is Season 9 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup. But also, we'd just like to let you know that if you have been enjoying the broadcast, and perhaps you'd like to support UKSimRacing a little bit more beyond subscribing today, well, you can do so via our affiliates. For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real world motorsport companies, including Swelly Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, Demon Tweaks, and Race Anywhere. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, and that website appears on screen as of now, you'll notice there's a link in the top right corner to the official UKSimRacing Discord. Now, why would you want to join our Discord? Well, firstly, if you ever want to be on the grid for any of our one-off events or mini-series or major series, it's a mandatory requirement that you have to be in the UKSimRacing Discord to attend the pre-race driver briefings and also keep up to date with all the latest series information. But perhaps more relevant to today is the fact that on our Discord, our affiliates provide discount codes which are only available on the official UKSimRacing Discord. And if you use one of those discount codes as part of your purchase, well, it ends up putting you in pole position to receive a discount. And on top of that as well, because of your usage of the affiliate code, we at UKSimRacing get a kickback. But as we're a non-profit organisation, every penny and pound we make from affiliate purchases goes into funding future series hosted by UKSimRacing, including future seasons of the GT3 League, the Porsche Cup, the ongoing British GT4 series. We've also got the MX5 Endurance Series coming back and plenty more planned for 2024. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UKSimRacing, but right now a bit of a breather can go a long way in getting ourselves set for the post-round interviews. We'll be back in approximately 12 minutes time, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And today we're going to be hearing from a driver of each car. Started off with our elite winner and pole sitter, Arnage Competition for Absolute Motorsport Ace Liv. We're then going to be going to our pro runner-up today, Alex Hill from Tiki Sinsport Kimi, before coming on to Simon Andre Livingston from Race Lab Esports. And then from the Pram driver, we'll come to our AM winner today, Neil Smith for UKSimRacing Mansell. So quite the variety in order when it comes to interviews. But without further ado, it gives me a great pleasure to have joining me right now none other than our elite and overall winner today, Haroldas Jatatis. Haroldas, what a drive from yourself. It must be said, it's great to see you back at the top step of the podium, and no less at Suzuka as well, a circuit which demands the very best out of drivers. You must feel very proud of today.
Hi Paul. Yeah, thanks very much. I feel proud and relieved. I probably won't be racing here anytime soon, and I'm not gonna miss it. It's one of the most stressful tracks that I've raced in recent, I don't know, years probably.
Oh, goodness me. Well, the stress definitely didn't get to you over the course of the racing today, but let's dial it back to qualifying firstly. You put in the car on pole in the Porsche 992, and it was a closely fought qualifying session, and it came on the final lap from yourself that you're able to take pole. How was qualifying for you?
At first, I wasn't able to put a fast lap. I noticed what Jack did, and Jack did like half a second faster than me, and I knew that I have to have better than that, so that made me push a little bit more, and yeah, I was able to put in a great lap.
Well, indeed, it was a phenomenal lap, and I have to ask, with regards to the Porsche 992 around this circuit, I mean, we know it's a very sensitive car in its rear, but we've been hearing all week about 130R and a number of corners around here really being risk versus reward for the Porsche. Did it feel like that in qualifying?
In qualifying and in the in general, just every time you reach that final sector, you think, am I gonna make it this time or not? My setup was specifically, well, I did not design it, but I chose a setup specifically the one that not necessarily made me faster, but the one with the highest odds of survival. So I was able to go on curbs comfortably, on those two left-handers towards the end of the track, and on the 130R as well. But still, I was lifting way too much. I drove quite a bit this week, and still I'm not comfortable at all. I was actually scared every time I reached that corner.
Well, goodness me, that's quite a different perspective compared to what we get to see here from the commentary booth and indeed our viewers at home. But keeping that fear locked inside the car, no doubt about it. When we did go green flag racing, it looked as though, at least in the opening stages of the race, it was all about just opening up a bit of a gap and then keeping that gap under control before the pit stop.
Yeah, so funny thing on the start, the starting zone was between two bridges, and I checked it before the race, when I saw that I qualified first, and when when I was nearing the starting zone, I noticed that, well, the bridges are not rendering for me in game because of my settings. So I tried to eyeball where I thought that those bridges are, and I was just like waiting, and was about to start somewhere late, and when the green lights come on, and I kind of just panicked and started. So I started in the starting zone, all good, but it was, well, out of panic actually. And then, yeah, at first I was able to like open up a small gap, but was really finding difficult to extend it. Guys behind me were actually faster in some sectors than me, so yeah, just try to well, keep it consistent and survive. That was my plan for the first part of the race.
I see, and well, despite all the panic and indeed the stress that was induced, you definitely managed to manage the start of the race effectively and gradually opened up that gap. And in the end, what looked to be a top four of Porsches all chasing one another for the win, you continued to lead it. And as we went deeper into the race, I have to ask, did you stick to your originally planned strategy or did you change things?
So I did not have a strategy, but once I started going, I saw my fuel calculations and I noticed that I have just about not enough fuel for extra lap before the pits. So towards the end, and I thought that the guy that was in P2, he had just too big of a gap to me to be able to save, but I was quite sure that Jack behind him will definitely be saving, so we needed to save. And towards the the second half before the pits, I started saving a bit just to not lose my advantage in the pits.
I see. So really thinking ahead when the pit strategy came along, and of course we did see some very strong drives up and down the field, and particularly from yourself coming out of the pits, back in control of the race, and all the way to the end. It looked as though the gap was never going to come down below 1.5 seconds. But I can imagine on the final couple of laps, at least, the tyres were really starting to feel the pain.
Yeah, for sure. Tires were well, the times show that, I've tried to not over push all race, so it lasted for me the whole race without any serious drop off, but I was expecting maybe after the pits I can go for the fastest lap because at the start of the race I blew my chance, but I was just not able to. So after those couple of attempts, after the tires, heated up again after the pit stop, I just took it easy all the way to the finish line.
Well, you may have taken it easy. You definitely made it look easy at the front, even though I could understand it was anything but easy. And with your first win of the season and really breaking the run of wins that James Armstrong has had so far, I have to ask, Sebring in a week's time, how are you feeling for the visit to the United States?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite track. I'm looking really much forward to it. Um, on this race, I thought that the whole Arnage team just decided to skip the round. I didn't even realize James is in the race because if he's in the race, I expect him to see in P1, and I didn't even check anywhere else. So he had quite an interesting race apparently, but I was not even aware of, But I thought that they are missing it, so I knew that I need to take this opportunity. So yeah, really glad about the result of this race.
Oh, no doubt about it. The opportunity was presented and you seized it with both hands. And now, of course, like you mentioned, we're going to Sebring in a week's time, your favourite circuit, and we expect plenty more from yourself stateside. But just before we do let you go, Heroldus, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
On my live stream, really appreciate that. Also, shout out to the new in Facebook. Hopefully, I can get these guys to come race here as well. They are really a fast bunch, so maybe we can challenge the team championship one day as well.
Without a doubt, we would love to see that in a future season, Heroldus. And if you guys are watching it right now, it's even a word from me in the content booth. Join the grid for the next season. We want to see yourself and Heroldus all in the team for Absolute Motorsport Ace-Live, going toe-to-toe with the best at the top of the field. But speaking of going toe-to-toe today, Heroldus, you were the best at the front of the field today. There was no doubt about it at Suzuka. An absolutely brilliant win. Congratulations on the win. Have a great rest of your evening. And we will see you in a week's time at Sebring.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So hearing there from Haroldas Jotatas, and we do apologise for the intermittent microphone issues right towards the end there. There may have been some slight connectivity issues in the Discord voice call we were using, but Haroldas giving up plenty of thanks and gratitude to his colleagues from Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift, particularly speaking about the Facebook group they're part of. But what a race from him today, and a very interesting interview, it must be said, with the fact talking about the fear he had going into today with regards to the Suzuka Circuit and going through 130R, indeed the latter half of the lap, really start off that double left sequence, which is referring to a spoon curve, all the way through to the end lap, and just worrying constantly, is he going to make it through that time around? And not just in qualifying, but in the race as well. And also talking about in the race, the fact that the balancing act, the tyre wear building up, and in the very last stages of the race, really hoping there's just enough life left in the car, left in the tyres, in order to get to the finish. But in the end, really was in a world of his own, managing to lead this race, never letting the gap fall, and that's why Haroldas Jotatas was your winner today. And noting as well the absence of the majority of the Arnage Competition field. But of course we did have James Armstrong, who not getting a valid qualifying lap in, having to start from the back of the field and carving his way on through. And there is of course the big what if question, if he had been able to avoid what was the speeding penalty in the pit lane, having to visit the pits again, and where he could perhaps tackle the podium if not gone chasing after the win. But still, that's a what if, and we only deal in certainties, and one certainty is today is that Haroldas Jotatas really led the way in the elite class. And if Sebring is his favourite circuit, well, I can tell you one thing, he's going to be looking to make it back-to-back wins next week in round number 4. But now coming on to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hearing very shortly from none other than what will be, our driver of Alex Hill, who gets ready to join me now in the interview room. And well, we're just going to give him the thumbs up that he can join us indeed, or Mr. Zander Hill as he's also known. As he gets ready to join me in the interview room, he joins me now. Good evening to you, Alex. And well, it's been some time since we've had the pleasure of yourself in the interview room. But today, what a drive for yourself and your teammate Ryan Davies. A 1-2 in the pro class for Tiki Simsport. And for yourself, a P2 that definitely puts you back on form for Tiki Simsport Kimi.
Yeah, it's when it was a good week, I think, generally for the Tiki cars, to be fair, for on there. So good results all round. I sort of would have been quite a little bit interesting to try see what had happened if we'd all been together, because we were all quite close at one point. But you know, it was quite fun. It was getting very close at the end as well. So yeah, a good race for us. I personally had a lot of fun, and I think the others did too.
Oh, no doubt about it. And starting off with what was a qualifying session, not just in the elite class and overall, but also here in the pro class, where it was very close for pole in the end. And just double checking our timing sheets, it was the difference in the end between yourself and pole position, as set was by Nicholas Rice, of only 400ths, if that. I mean, you couldn't ask for closer, and Joshua Pratt well, only a further 200ths off of yourself. Just take us through qualifying, because to be P3 by such a small margin, it must feel painful, but also at the same time something to be proud of.
It was a little painful, because on my second flying lap I was actually 0.3 up, and then managed to get an off track on spoon. I was like, real. And then on my final one, it just wasn't able to put it together properly. But yeah, it was, you know, it felt like otherwise a good lap. So, you know, and like I said, we were all within that one.
Indeed. And sorry, go on. I think we might have some connectivity issues there, but just with regards to driving the car around the circuit, the Audi R8, I mean, we've heard the Porsches were quite sensitive on that rear end, but how did you find the Audi for the 130R corner and perhaps the wider circuit as a whole?
I think as long as you didn't go in too hard on the brakes, it was actually really quite good. I was fairly stable for 130R. I only had one little wiggle when I was in the dirty air, but I certainly felt the Audis were having an easier time of it than the Porsches from the feedback I was getting from some of my teammates.
That's absolutely fair, and a good insight there with regards to the difference between the two mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars. And coming onto the race itself for you, it looked as though it was a relatively steady start, and really for the opening, what was at least 30 minutes of the race, it was follow the leader as time went on. I have to ask, within that space, was there a lot of fuel saving going on, a lot of tyre preservation, or was it really you having to push hard just to stay in that lead pack?
No, I was able to save, me and Ryan actually were able to save quite a bit of fuel. We needed to go that extra lap, and you know, as I say, I didn't have the best pit exit, which wasn't ideal, but we'd both exited ahead. I guess we've saved enough fuel to jump both Nicholas in the pits, so you know, it did work out well for us being able to sit there and save some fuel.
I see, and going deeper and deeper, of course, then there comes the question of when do you decide to pit? We saw yourself and your teammate take quite a late pit stop compared to others. Was that always the plan, to try and go the longest?
I think so, yes, because what we've been finding is when we've been trying to get the undercut, and I had this last week because I was forced into it last week due to damage, or the last week we were doing due to damage, that you just end up back out in traffic, and even if you are faster than the people around you, you just lose so much time trying to get back on there. And I think, like Josh Pratt tried it this week, and it didn't work out for him. So I think you do have to go as long as possible, really.
Indeed, it makes sense, and like you say, Joshua Pratt having a nightmare moment with regards to strategy by coming out in traffic and losing a lot of places that had been gained early on in the race. But after the pit stop, of course, coming into the waning stage of the race, tyres started to wear down, fuel also being low, and we did see you start to mount a bit of a charge after Ryan Davies, particularly in the last 5 laps. I get the temptation was there to try and sneak the win.
Greg messaged me saying team orders go for the win. I'm like, unfortunately, my tyres probably not up to it, but I was getting within a tenth of him each lap, but it is a very difficult track to overtake on. I didn't really want to make an obnoxious move on one of my teammates in order to get the win, especially not with having Nicholas so close behind. I didn't want to compromise that pit 1-2, which otherwise might not have happened if we had ended up fighting.
Or did it make sense? Fight hard, but not too hard, because your teammates at the end of the day, like you say. And just on that with regards to Nicholas Rice, indeed the whole pro class as a whole, we now have seen what has been some very different stories after 3 rounds, with both yourself and also Ryan Davies both having very consistent results across the board. And then we've had, of course, the rise and fall of some drives in terms of wins and then being outside the top 5. But I have to ask, this pro class seems to be shaped up very closely this season. Have you felt that there's, perhaps arguably, it's going to be one of those ones whereby it's just going to go from round to round there in terms of who is going to be the winner, or are you starting to see some favourites, say yourself or other members of the team, moving at the front?
I'd love to say that I'm a favourite, but I don't think that would be true. I think it's still anybody's championship at this point. We've still got 5 more rounds to go. So you know, Sebring next week is going to be an interesting one. A lot of people really do like Sebring, so we'll have to see how that goes. On there, it's another one where different cars are going to be strong in different areas. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But at the moment, it's still anybody's to win, I believe.
Well, indeed, it's a long journey, like you're saying. Still 5 rounds to go. And speaking of Sebring, how are you feeling for the Florida State Circuit?
Well, I've not done any practice there yet, so it's been a while since I've driven it in a GT3. If you'd quite like to let me back in the Acura again, I'll race that round, yeah. We'll see how we go then, but we'll have to see how it goes, because the new Audi seems to be decent enough over the bumps, so I would hope it should cope well with the airfield circuit, and we'll just have to see whether or not it's able to maintain enough time in the mid sectors to get away along some of the longer straights at Sebring. So we'll have to wait and see how it does.
We definitely look forward to yourself and the wider Tiki Simsport team bringing the A game as always to another round of racing in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
So again, a big thank you to everybody racing. It's obviously great to see familiar names on the grid every single week. Big shout out to my team and obviously everyone at the UKSR team.
Well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me for an interview this evening. Congratulations on 2nd place in the race day in the pro class, and did that 3rd place in qualifying as well. Tightest of margins out there, but you're definitely showing your credentials to be a championship contender with regular podium finishes. We look forward to plenty more from yourself at Sebring in a week's time, but until then, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you next Sunday. So hearing there from Alex Hill from Tiki Simsport Kimi, the driver today who took a second place, albeit just behind sister team driver Ryan Davies, and fighting hard all the way through. And talking there about the fact 600 separating the top 4 in the Pro class in qualifying. Very small margins, slender margins, indeed the tightest we have seen so far. But there, the frustration, the fact that he was on a much better lap, albeit his second flying lap with an off-track, compromising it, and meaning he couldn't quite go through to take the pole position. Then going into the race as well, a real story of follow the leader, as we see the pictures here articulating exactly that, albeit with the interruption of Reece Saunders, the elite driver, got in amongst the mix there, but not really changing the lay of the land. And we saw in the end the amount of fuel stand that both Ryan and also Alex were able to do, which saw them leap ahead of Nicholas Rice, and that would be the way it would finish in the end. Even though Alex had been given the team orders to try and hunt down the win, it wasn't going to quite come, and having to balance the act of fighting with a sister team driver versus, of course, making sure the 1-2 comes on through and the team coming first in that instance. But still, whichever way it went today, a phenomenal result for Tiki Simsport in the Pro class, and for Alex Hill, a great result, one of his strongest of the season, and plenty more to come, starting with Sebring next week. We feel as though the Audi's going to be good over the bumps, and it could be a sign of what's to come. And could it be his first win of the season that's on the cards? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But now coming on to our third interview, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come to the Prime class, and we're going to have join us very shortly none other than Simon Andre Livingston as he gets ready to jump into the interview room. And as he does so, we're going to hear his story with regards to how the racing has gone today, a little bit further down the order. And in fact, he does join me now. Good evening to you, Simon Andre. What a challenging day it has been for many drivers, yourself included, in the Pro-Am class. A P10 position in qualifying, and in the end, a P7 in class come the end of the race. It looked as though progress gradually came, but it wasn't without its challenges at Suzuka.
Good evening, Paul. No, this race was challenging. This series, the 3 first races has been challenging. I have had, I forgot to pit for fuel in Daytona. Hockenheim has spun, or had 2 incidents, spun 2 times, and now I for some reason had technical issues with my pit crew. So on the pit stop I took a fuel tank of fuel and lost like 8 or more seconds. But to do almost a grid and go, I just managed to get into the server like 5 minutes before quali. I've been doing that like the whole season since I'm driving the Norwegian Nationals just before. So I'm happy about my result today, but I'm almost hoping for more, and now I finally feel like the Ferrari is getting underneath me. I have practiced, done some preparation and practice for Suzuka, and I was hoping for more, but I just managed to get in a quali lap, had off tracks in the 2 first tries, so I only had like 1 try to get it, and then I just got super cautious just to not have to start from the back. So, but quite happy with the race. Felt like I had good race pace and did some stupid mistakes, but like you say, progression is coming.
Oh, no doubt about it, and I appreciate your analysis of your day today. And talking a little bit more about qualifying, it's interesting you say that in the inherent of play it safe, and a 10th place on the grid, which was 1.2 seconds off of the prime pole. I have to ask, in terms of the lap time that might have been out there, where do you think your gap to the pole lap, which was set by Chris Round, could have been then?
The thing is, I didn't see what kind of, I just got in, so I didn't see what kind of like track conditions we had before I went into quali, but in practice I have done sub 59 on 19 in air and 20 on track. So I hope for somewhere around like 159 flat or low, at least. That was what I was aiming for. I felt I had it probably on my second go, but then I off-tracked in final corner in the chicanes. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe a pole, but probably where I have been like most steadiest, like right around where he qualified, like 1:59.5, around there is where I've been in practice. So I was hoping for that, but didn't manage to get it. So yeah, unfortunate. But yeah, I've been really having a good time with Suzuka in terms of like speed on my practice, but driving GT4 in the Norwegians and then just jumping into this car, I just needed 2 laps to get uh, acclimatized again to the GT3. So it's it's not optimal, but this is how it is for the next 3 races or so. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, it may not be optimal, but to be fair, given the amount of time you do have to practice and having to jump straight in, and the fact that the pace is looking strong out there, and well, when you do get to nail it, it could be pole positions that are coming in qualifying. Coming on to the race itself, appreciate what you were discussing earlier with the fact in just gradually making your way up through the field. I have to ask at Suzuka, of course, overtaking here so difficult to do generally. Were you finding there any place in particular where you could make overtakes, or was it more just coming down to the pit strategy?
Mostly just pit strategy. Oh, sorry, strategy. I think like I was for the majority after like the first laps when things like settled. I think I was for the majority of the race behind Albanese, if that's the right Stefan, if that's the right way to pronounce his Italian last name. It's not easy, but yeah, I was behind him. I couldn't really find anywhere to like go for a overtake that I felt like would be a good overtake. I'm probably one of the more cautious guys when it comes to like just sending it up on the inside and praying for it to work out. I want to be clean and fair, so I tried to like do that for the most part. So I was thinking when the lap he went into pit, I was thinking about pitting. So, but I saw like at the last moment, oh, he's also pitting. So I went straight out again. Did not cross the pit entry, so I didn't get any penalties. I was good with that. But then, of course, I don't know what's going on with my crew chief and everything right now. This is the second time in a league race, like hosted race, that my auto fuel has apparently been turned off. So that ruined my chances to race him later on in the race, because I saw like when he went into pit, it was 0.5. When I got out of the pits after sitting there, just like, yeah, 72 liters, that's nice, that's a full tank, we don't need that. And then coming out like 8 or 9 seconds behind him, then it was just like, yeah, get to the finish. I saw that I had a good gap back to the next pro amateur. So for me, the second stint wasn't really enjoyable. It was just like racing with a lot of fuel, just trying to get to the end, being really upset by on the technical side. But for me, of course, I need to finish. That's I want to finish all my races. So yeah, managed to get it over the line. So happy with that in a way. But yeah.
Oh, I can appreciate your frustration there, particularly with regards to the wrong amount of fuel going in the car and not being able to fight. And like you say, just having to get to the end and get the points, just make sure to finish the race. Well, with that in mind, of course, we've still got plenty of rounds to go this season. And in a week's time, of course, we head to the US for Sebring. How are you feeling for the Florida State Circuit?
That's a circuit that I have had like some enjoyable GT3 races in the past, so that will be nice. We're looking forward to that for sure. But for me now, I feel like I'm with 3 poor results. I'm kind of like out of the contention in like the season total. But I will focus on like the races where I see like I have the best opportunity to put down the hours and just have a solely focus on the race. Then I will try to like see if I can get some class wins this season. That's my main goal right now. So Sebring might be a good first opportunity, because I do think if it's I don't know if this one will crash with the Norwegian Championship or not, so it might be that I don't need to grid and go. So maybe that will be the first opportunity. So yeah, and I really enjoy that track. I like it technical, but yeah, it will be nice. I will for sure do some hours there to just prepare and be ready.
Well, that's sounding positive already, and fingers crossed you are able to put the preparations that you'd like to into Sebring, because we would love to see you challenging for the win. There's no question about it. But just before I do let you go, as always, Simon Andre, if there's anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say get well soon to Eric. He is struggling with the man flu at the moment, and all the mans out there, we know how hard a man flu is. So we need to hope that he has a swift and easy recovery, because he didn't sound good the last time I spoke with him. I also need to thank Racing Lab, our sponsors, KTM, Azatec, Vinstra Motorsport Center. I think that was all the sponsors, and all the guys in Racing Lab, which makes this possible in terms of like learning and competing. And of course, thank to UKSimRacing for putting up this league, and for you, Paul, to do a immaculate job as a commentator, and always enjoying to be interviewed by you. So I hope we will be speaking soon, and then hopefully as a race winner. So I hope for that.
We would definitely love to see that, and I'll hold you to that one, no question about it, Stephen Andre. But until next time, congratulations today on your 7th place finish in the Pram class. Understandably not quite what you wanted it to be, but still the progress being made. Plenty more to come potentially at Sebring in a week's time, and we'll see you there. But until then, have a nice rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul. Goodbye.
So hearing there from our prime interviewee, Simon Andre Livingston, the number 23 driver from Racing Lab Esports, and talking there about the difficulties of having to manage the National Series, the Norwegian National Series, and then jumping straight into the races here for the GT3 League, and how he does it. That is testament to his endurance and stamina, his commitment as well to both series, no question about it. Now having to affect his grid and go in terms of jumping in with 5 minutes before qualifying and get out there, and having to play it safe today with the fact his first 2 laps being invalidated, and knowing he only really had 1 lap left on the cards, and by putting it in P10 on the grid wasn't ideal, indeed having to fight his way through and all the fighting kind of strategy. But then again, his crew chief, as he mentioned, putting too much fuel in the car, not functioning properly, and therefore falling back behind Stefan Albanese, who we see here the 2 of them in their battle, and the pursuit of which Simon Andre Livingston was trying to complete. It wasn't going to come quite through to fruition today, but still plenty of racing to go, and he fancies his chances at Sebring, and well, he's looking forward to the prospect of potentially chasing victory there, and we look forward to seeing how he exactly does it. But now, ladies and gentlemen, coming on to our final interview of today. You've heard from 3 of our classes so far out of the 4 of them, so you're now going to hear from our 4th class, and it will be the AM class, and no one else but Neil Smith, who is going to join us in the interview room, and we're going to hear the story of the man today who took the win in the AM class. As he gets set to join me in the interview, and we'll also hear the story of his qualifying session as he does join me now. Good evening to you, Neil. It feels as though it was an eternity ago that we saw you take victory in round number 2, and today you've become the first AM driver to pick up double victories or back-to-back victories with the Suzuka Circuit. I mean, it must feel special to do it A, at Suzuka, and B, on the return after the mid-season break.
Yeah, very, very pleasantly surprised. Honestly, came in not massively confident, but here we are.
Now, I like that, the fact you weren't massively confident immediately, and I have to pry and ask more. Why were you not confident going into today?
It was one of those where I couldn't tell if it was just the car and I'd not got the setup right, or it was just me not gelling with Suzuka, but there was so many points where, I mean, obviously the BM's notorious for being quite stable, whereas here it feels like it's trying to kill you around half the corners, which is a bit of a change of pace. So yeah, it just didn't feel like it was wanting to do what I was trying to get it to do for most of it. So in the race, I just sort of dialed back a bit and tried to keep on the track really, and that seemed to have worked.
Well, it definitely did work. And coming on to qualifying, we did see John Davis take the pole lap in the end with 2 minutes 0.497. For yourself, it was P3, was 2.5 tenths behind. How was qualifying for you? Was it a bit of a balancing act in terms of trying to get a good lap on the board but not push it too far because of the characteristics of the BMW you just described to us?
Yeah, the initial couple of laps were just to get something on the board. I did abandon what should have been a really good lap because I clipped the first corner on the bus stop, the chicane, whatever you want to call it, and got an off track and thought, right, well, I'm just gonna go give myself 5, have a breather, and then come back ready for the race rather than get stressed and try and do that again. So I was up like 4 tenths, and I'm like, right, well, I've just messed that up, but well, this'll do.
Well, I'm liking the attitude there, focusing your energies more on the race. And speaking of the race, and we do see a couple of moments there on the replay camera of yourself having a bit of a sideways moment into Spoon Curve. The start of the race looked relatively straightforward, albeit there was a bit of bumping and bustling in the rolling start procedure. But after we got underway, it looked like it was follow the leader and just gradually try to chase after James Connolly.
Yeah. So that was basically I ended up with I believe it was 2 pro-ams or a pro and a pro-am between myself and James, and it was one of those where it's like I'm not really sure where I'm going to overtake. I am not fast enough than either of these, so I'm just gonna save some fuel, save some tires if I can, and sit behind, see where that leads me. Saw that James was about 4 seconds ahead, and his best was faster than my best at the time. And I'm like, not sure I can actually catch James here. I might just tuck in and keep it tidy. And that was sort of the plan, at least in the first stint.
Which seems to be a smart plan. And with regards to all plans, of course, sometimes they don't always go the way you expect them to. Come the end of the first stint, we saw a lot of drivers invest in going longer. James seemed to invest in going for the ultimate undercut, being the first of the top 5 AMs to pit, whereas you did the opposite. Was that always in mind?
It was one of those where it's I'm always sort of cautious of trying to be too clever with the undercuts, because I don't necessarily feel like I am either fast enough to make use of it, or if I mistime it, I'll come out behind someone or in front of somebody that is behind someone that's slower than me, or in front of somebody that is gonna force their way past me because they are 2 seconds a lot faster. So I'm just like, I'll keep going. I'll get it until it feels like the tires are looking a bit sketchy and getting too hot. Running the weight in the back's getting too low because there's no fuel in the car, and then just dip in there, fill it up at the end.
I see. I think a sensible approach there. And once the pit stops were complete, you emerged in the lead of the class, 6 seconds ahead of your teammate and rival of the day, James. I have to ask firstly, when did that drop at you that you are now leading in the class?
Well, at first I just wondered where he'd gone. I'm like, I mean, he should be, and I noticed that I think the guy on screen now, I'll be honest, I can't remember who it was, that I was following for the first stint was behind me. Was like 2 places behind me. I'm like, oh, I wonder where James is. And then a couple of laps later, I saw him pop up on my relative as being 3-4 positions back, and like 7 seconds behind at that point. And I'm like, how the hell's that happened? What's he done there? What's happened? So that was unexpected. But just talking to him after the race, it sounds like there was some error with the fueling situation. So he ended up having a very slow pit. So he just basically lost 10 seconds in the pit, which effectively turned the win over to me by the look of it.
We need a punishing error with regards to the fuel gun. It sounds as though a number of drivers in the team today being affected by it, but not so for yourself. And then as the race wound on to the closing stages, we saw you just focus on bringing it home in P30, albeit you did have the company of Cy Anstey immediately behind you. But it looks as though that was more about just waiting for the elite driver to get close and letting him go than anything else.
Yeah, basically, I didn't really feel like at that point. I mean, I didn't take tires, and at that point, I just didn't have the pace to even pretend to try and keep him behind me, and I don't think I would have gained anything. I would have lost more time than anything. So I just, as soon as he got close and I saw him go for the move, I just got out of his way and tucked in for a few laps to try and get dragged along a little.
Well, it was a smart approach, and with the second win of your season tonight, it now means you lead the championship based on those initial drop scores by 3 points over your teammate James Connolly. But this AM class so far has proved very close. You may be a two-time winner, but I get the feeling you're not taking anything for granted.
No, absolutely not. As I say, especially this week, Suzuka's a technical track. I wasn't massively confident. Even though we had the 2 week break, I frankly did not put the level of practice in that I normally would, and I was a little bit slower than James. So I fully expected to be sort of, keeping behind him. But mistakes happen, and I've took the win on the actual track. But yeah, again, absolutely not expecting this to sort of keep being a recurrence. As I said last time, it shows it's possible, and it's just about keeping it tidy rather than trying to push a little too hard and ending up in the barrier.
Well, speaking of circuits where keeping it tidy and not pushing too hard may work in your favour, we head to Sebring in a week's time. How are you feeling for the American circuit?
It's been a long time since I've raced Sebring, but I do enjoy it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
We definitely look forward to seeing whether you can make it 3 in a row and carry on that championship lead. But Neil, just before I do let you go as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Same as always, really. Yourself and everybody organising for putting on a quality product, and the guys in the team. Spent a bit of time with, I think it was Alan, in the run up to this, to sort of just drag a bit more of the pace out. So again, just thanking those guys for giving me that nudge.
Well, Neil, we need to thank you for joining us as our AM interview for today. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you, and what a result from yourself. Congratulations on your second win of the season, and well, we look forward to seeing how you get on at Sebring in a week's time. But until then, savour the moment and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
So hearing there from our final interview of today, our AM winner from UKSimRacing Mansell of Neil Smith there. And interested in his thoughts with regards to not perhaps expecting too much out of himself today, given the technicality of the Suzuka circuit, and a circuit he hasn't quite gelled with since in comparison of other circuits that he's raced at this season. But still, with the practice he was able to put in, bringing himself to a P3 in qualifying and just playing it smart, and knowing that perhaps there was a bit more time out there, but not getting himself too worked up over it, and taking time at the end of the qualifying session to rest, recuperate and go to the grid. And once the racing got underway, he was talking about the fact that he spent a majority of the opening stint chasing after Matthew Whitefoot, and in doing so there was able to manage the strategy, and a bit of a blunder in the pits for his teammate James Connolly with regards to the amount of fuel going into the car, meant that the win would default into the hands of Neil Smith, and he never looked back. But to be fair, that's the way it goes sometimes in racing, and you've got to be there in the right place at the right time to pick up the pieces when they are dropped by the race leaders. And now with 2 wins in a row, where he's not saying he's the favourite by any means, and he's not expected himself to carry on this momentum, but then again, looking forward to Sebring. Hasn't raced there in some time, and could he become our first 3-time winner in this championship? Well, we'll have to wait and see, because I don't think he's going to be counting on it, but you never know what can happen. And so far, Neil Smith has been the force to be reckoned with in the AM class. There's no doubt about that. And that concludes our post-round interviews, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to all 4 of our drivers for joining us this evening. We've had one from each of our classes, and just to recap, you've just heard from Neil Smith from UKSimRacing Mansell, the 304 driver in the AM class. Prior to him, we heard from the Pro-Am driver, the number 23 at Simon Andre Livingston for Racing Lab Esports, and we also heard from the Pro classes driver, Alex Hill, in the 276 for Tiki Simsport Kimi, the runner-up in the class today. And our first interview was none other than Haroldus Jatatas for Absolute Motorsport Ace Live, the elite driver there, taking pole, and in the end taking the overall win with it as well. Congratulations to all 4 of them on their performances, and thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room. But now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, it's time for us to give you an update on the standings provisionally after 3 rounds of racing, and we start off with the Elite Drivers' Championship. And with 1 drop score being accounted for, as we can see, James Armstrong continues to lead with 2 wins in a row at the start of the season, benefiting him well, but today becoming his first drop score or potential drop score of the season, and 9, that is 6-point advantage over Heroldus Jotatas. It's a good one, but it's one he can't take for granted, particularly with Jotatas finding the win today and feeling confident for Sebring in a week's time. Meanwhile, Aiden Neat sits a further 3 points behind. They're not on the grid today, and we look forward to seeing Neat return to the grid as a Sebring, and then Jack Taylor moving into P4 there on 70 points, 1 clear of Alex Millward, but Helder Gonzalez out just outside the top 5, but a driver today for Track 6 Racing who showed a lot of potential and showed his prowess for chasing down podiums if not wins, and he's going to be one to watch out for as well going into our next round. He's on 66 points jointly with his teammate Daniel Shilcock, both of them making a very strong pairing, and I imagine they're going to continue to chase the podium spots for as long as the season goes on, with Eric Rosev not on the grid today due to ill health, as was mentioned by Simon Andre Livingston, and therefore dropping the score today, and we hope to see him back on the grid in a week's time, taking the fight for Racing Lab Esports alongside his colleagues. And then we can see David Sobrero and Reece Saunders completing your top 10, with the Altitude Esports driver on 54 points, and 2 behind both Rosev and Sobrero, and then Gavin Gardner a further 10 behind, head of Cy Anthony and Yanis Aubert, who complete your Elite Championship standings. Then coming on to the Pro class, and here the story is one where it is Ryan Davies who leads by 3 points for Tiki Simsport Car Marte over teammate Joshua Pratt. For today, Pratt, it was going to be what was a challenge of strategy not working out, but for Davies, meanwhile, it worked out aplenty, and that's why the two have swapped places at the top, with Khalid Ramadan there in P3, the Somsport driver demonstrating that sometimes you don't need to win, you just need to be consistent, and right now the multiple top 5 finishes keeping him in good stead. He's equal to Alex Hill, who's behind based on result countback for Tiki Simsport Kimi, and then the DCW racing driver Mark Collicott sits in P5 there, a further 4 off. It's then to John Edos for Tiki Simsport Tour, who's still trying to hit his stride in the Pro class. Keep your eyes on him because the results are coming on through, and Krista Housewife for Track 6 Racing sits a further 2 behind, but 3 ahead of Peter Cox, who wasn't on the grid today for Destino Motorsports, and it's Casper Broughton and Lee King McGee who complete your top 10. Speaking of the AKM Racing UK driver, we mentioned he wasn't on the grid today, but expect him back on the grid in round number 4, and this will definitely become his cemented drop score, and he'll be looking to try and reignite his championship campaign. As meanwhile, Matt Hisley sits a further point outside the top 10 for Sloshy Motorsports, and what was a challenging day today filled with battling, he'll be looking to continue that trend as of next week. Nicholas Rice, Tom Weston, Casper Tunstead and Darren Sharples complete your top 15, but of course keep your eyes there on Nicholas Rice, whose result today was definitely a reversal of fortunes compared to his earlier results in rounds 1 and 2, and starting to hit his form, but unfortunately not picking up the win today due to what strategy. But outside the top 15 from Sharples there we have Rachel Conkley not on the grid today at P16 for Prismatic Motorsports, ahead of Symphony Esports is Ollie Pimley, and Daniel Pays completes your championship standings there, P18 on 12 points. We'll then come to the Prime class, and we can see at the very top it's Rob Zelby who leads on 77 points, 1 ahead of Anne Lever, with the 2 UKSimRacing Stuart drivers right now practically running neck and neck in support to one another, and behind them by only a single point is Chris Constable for Destino Motorsports. 3 points separates, in fact 2 points separates the top 3. It could not be closer, with Constable locking in today's round as his drop score. Team Badger Steel's Simon Oldfield in P4, again showing that consistency is key, and whilst not finishing on the podium today, another top 5 finish benefited him and moving him to P4 and 73 points. 2 clear and Marvin Cruz, with the old dudes in cars blue driver keeping in the hunt. Stefan Albanese sits a further 11 behind there and leading the rest of the pack right now, with Chris Round for Leroy Jenkins having a disastrous day today after what was looking to be a potential win, but he'll be looking to bounce back in a week's time, ahead of Matt Whiteford, Jeff Griffiths and Stein Arsani. And from the Racing Lab Esports driver, it's 4 points to Best of P11, and you heard from him earlier today, Stephen Andre Livingston, the teammate of Sandy there for Racing Lab Esports, and it's 2 points to Rob Armstrong ahead of Steve Hughes, with Joel Dutton and Ed Frazina completing your top 15. Behind the car fellas driver, it's Satinder Deansa for Tiki Simsport Copa, not on the grid today. We hope to see him on the grid at Sebring, and no use Sabas there having a difficult day earlier in the season, but today having some good results coming in with regards to points. 18 points to his name, moving into what is P17, only behind Deansa based on result countback, and it's Connor Craven and Chris Bates who complete your standings there of your 19 drivers. Now lastly coming on to in terms of our Drivers' Championships, the AM class standings, and here we can see Neil Smith leading the way by 3 points after back-to-back victories over teammate James Conley. UKSimRacing Mansell lead the way, and they are 4 points ahead of John Davis, the wrong stuff driver, who today recovered well to finish P4 and keeps himself right and firmly in the hunt. and is not letting the leaders break away. Nor is Jack Barker the priority in the Ford G2, sits a further point behind there, knowing that another podium will go well, and those podiums continue to come on through. Head of John Doble for Tiki Simsport Kimi, and they're the number 77 driver Ian P5, a further 5 points afield, and only 2 ahead of Matt Edmondson for UKSimRacing Stewart. It wasn't to be his result today, and therefore it becomes his first drop score. Cy Hartley for Tiki Simsport Car Marte, P7 ahead of Neil Jack, and then only behind him based on result countback is Guy Kyliau for the wrong stuff in the hunt for P8, albeit Kyliau in P9, and James Bostock completes your top 10 for Petek GP2, not on the grid as of this round. The same can be said for Andy Skinner there, a further 5 behind, who didn't participate today, and therefore the Tiki Simsport Corporate driver will lock in a 0 score. Head of Shaminda Deensa for Tiki Simsport Tower, who made his debut on the grid today and picking up 30 points, a good start to his championship campaign. And then Dave Robson and Frankie Kine complete your championship standings. But then last but not least, coming to the Teams Championship, and we look to the top 20 here, and after 3 rounds, it's Arnage Competition who continue to hold the lead by a reduced margin of 6 points over UKSimRacing Mansell, with UKSimRacing Stewart a further 2 behind. It's a gap of 13 points to Tiki Simsport Car Marte, who are only 4 points clear of Track Chicks Racing to complete your top 5, but they're only ahead of Tiki Simsport Tour based on result countback, and it's worth noting now how close it is in the fight for P4 and in the right to try and break into the top 3. Into that fold as well is Destino Motorsports as well as Tiki Simsport Kimi, and a sizable 15-point gap to the wrong stuff, who only hold 3 points over DCW Racing, who complete your top 10. It's 2 points to both Tiki Simsport Corporate and Racing Lab Esports, who are joint on points, but Racing Lab Esports behind based on result countback, with Old Dudes in Cars Blue P13 a further point behind, and it's 30 points to Absolute Motorsport Ace Live ahead of Arnage Competition Pink. Team Vadrasil, Effect Simulations, Some Sport, Old Dudes in Cars Black and Symphony Esports complete your top 20, and then DRS Esport are on 60 points as well, but in P21 based on result countback versus Symphony Esports. But that wraps up your top 20 team standings after 3 rounds of racing, and with it, all the standings updates as of this round. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the UK sim racing community in terms of what we do on the virtual circuit and outside of it, or perhaps you want to sign up for some of our ongoing or future series. Indeed, this GT3 season absolutely in high demand, to the point we do have an extended reserve list right now. And if you want to get your name on that reserve list or find out more about the Porsche Cup series that's ongoing, or other series that are ongoing, including the British GT4 Championship, well, the best thing you need to do is go to our official website. That's at uksimracing.co.uk. You saw the website earlier on today in the broadcast, and there you can find out all the details of our ongoing series and how to sign up. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, then we do recommend you go to our official Twitter. That's at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_ to stay up to date with all the latest announcements regarding our upcoming and ongoing series, and also keep up to date with the latest trials and tribulations of the official UKSimRacing esports teams. We'd like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our affiliates as well, and starting off with Swilly Almeida Sim Racing Coaching. The creator of the Motor Racing Checklist, Swilly Almeida Sim Racing Coaching, can help take your sim racing drive to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swilly Almeida has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Swilly being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment, aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level or discipline, Demon Tweaks can help drive you to realize your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing-related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make SimLab the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Amazon, the company trying to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work, through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, which do include but are not limited to Amazon Prime, Amazon Web Services, and Amazon Alexa. And lastly, but by no means least, SRC Driver Academy. Elevate your sim racing skills with SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose SRC? Affordable quality coaching. They have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights and a competitive edge, making high-quality coaching accessible to all at an affordable cost tailored to your needs and goals. You can learn race strategies, position driving, and much more, and they offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. So join the SRC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Visit their website to learn more and accelerate your sim racing career. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the pace is not going to slow down, I can tell you that, because in a week's time, on Sunday the 4th of February, it's the second month of 2024, and it's the 4th round of the championship. We're going to be back in the United States of America for the one and only Sebring International Raceway, and there over the bumps and bounces of the old concrete versus the newer asphalt, we see our drives turn it up a notch in the hunt to continue the pursuit of victory and championship glory. And with all 4 of our championships closely met and being mixed up as a result of today's racing at Suzuka, it's only time will tell whether we'll start to see some emerging favourites in Sebring or whether things will continue to see multiple drives in the hunt. All that and more is due to come in a week's time, but until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.